All right, welcome everyone to the second episode of The Boiling Point. My episode tonight is my friend from 25 years or more, almost 30 now, Kurtis Oneski. Kurtis, what are we talking about today?
Wrestling, I believe you said.
Wrestling. We're going to talk about wrestling. Oh, that's right. We're going to talk about wrestling today. It's not going to be political. No political. It's going to be, though maybe highly controversial. Wrestling. So we're talking about professional wrestling, of course, not Olympic style or high school wrestling. WWE, WCW, AEW, those things. TNA. The NWA. Those are all the ones recognized. We should be clear that those are the ones that I just named, the 5 organizations that I just named, are the ones that are recognized by Pro Wrestling Illustrated, which is pretty much when you're talking in terms of what is recognized by the wrestling world, Pro Wrestling Illustrated is.
Shout out to John Moxley, got #1 this year.
I did not know that. That's excellent.
Yeah, John Moxley, they just released, I believe it was two, maybe 3 weeks ago, they released their top 500 list, as they do every year. And my main man, John Moxley,
I did not know that he got #1. That's great. Yeah, John Moxley.
Big and bold right on the front cover with that AEW strap.
Formerly Dean Ambrose, called the WWE, but in the AEW and in the indie circuit, he's called John Moxley. Currently the AEW World Champion.
Big fan of what AEW's doing right now. Full disclosure, I haven't watched any WWE's and... when's the last one we sat down and watched WrestleMania? We're talking 3 years ago now.
Yeah, 2 or 3 years ago we saw WrestleMania.
But I have not missed a episode of AEW. They did have one this last week. I have missed. It's on my DVR,
me too.
But
actually,
otherwise I am caught up to everything except this week.
Yeah, me too. We missed this past week, but I'm at least familiar. I'm aware of what's happening in the WWE at least a little bit. Though I haven't seen too much of it for good reason, which was one of the topics I believe we'll also get into later on.
But I thought, Gunnar, we should open things up. First and foremost, this is the first conversation we're having about wrestling, hopefully first of many to come. But for the first one, I thought we should give a baseline of where our personal wrestling views lie. And I thought I thought we should give some thoughts to our wrestling Mount Rushmores.
All right.
Top 4 of all time. Rushmore, you got Jefferson, Lincoln, Washington, and Roosevelt, with obviously George Washington and Abraham Lincoln in the spots of glory. I will get us started in who I think should easily be both of our George Washingtons.
And those names he just said were the names of what our Mount Rushmore is.
Yeah,
for anybody who doesn't
Mount
know,
Rushmore,
just
yes.
Nice little tidbit there. Thank you, Curtis.
But I think George Washington, place of honor front. They got his whole chest and a little bit of his outfit there.
Wait, hold on one second. Are we talking about literally picking 4 names?
4, yes.
That's rubbish.
You're gonna have to boil. No, man, you need to boil it down. I think we need to boil it down to top 4, and they're coming to you for some reason. Vince McMahon, Tony Khan, and Eric Bischoff are coming to you. And they're saying, John, we're putting the Mount Rushmore of wrestling together. We need your
4
top
names
4.
Is
no, I can do it. And I'm gonna get us started here with one who I think should sit in both of our George Washington positions. I don't even think it's an
George Washington. Okay,
yes,
go
I'm
ahead.
Start with the most prestigious. Who's up front? Whose face is the #1 you got to put there? And I'm thinking, and I don't think anybody can honestly argue with me that it's got to be Ric Flair.
Ric Flair?
Ric Flair. It's got to be Flair. It's got to be Flair, loud with the robe. It's got to be Ric Flair.
I would definitely put Ric Flair in that list. He would definitely be on the Mount Rushmore. Sure, you were not going to get much argument from me. You're talking about the. Yes, I know some of the stats. I know some of the stats.
16. Last time I checked, it was 16-time world champion. No, probably something more than that since the last time I saw it.
Yeah, the WWE doesn't recognize some of the things that should be recognized, so we don't count them.
We're not sitting under Vince's roof, so we're not going to go by Vince's rules.
He is technically a 21-time World Heavyweight Champion, and again, that's including the 5 organizations, the 5 main organizations that we talked about. He is a 21-time World Heavyweight Champion.
That's even more impressive.
And that's not counting. Those are just World Championships, single title reigns. Those are not counting Tag Team Championships, United States Championships, Intercontinental Championships. That's not counting any of those.
I mean, he single-handedly, and then with the 4 Horsemen, he ruled that Memphis to South Carolina to Charlotte, like, he ruled his territory back in the day. He ruled other territories back in the day. He's wrestled in Japan. He's wrestled in
Yes, he did.
Puerto Rico. He's wrestled all over this country and all over this world. Back before people, were wrestling all over the world
A lot of people owe their careers to Ric Flair also, because back in the day before, especially around the Indies, the big stars, they had a lot of sway back in the locker room in terms of who they might lose the world title to. Ric Flair was obviously a world champion, and a big star through the 80s. Even he dates back to the 70s, but in the 80s is really when he became the Ric Flair as we know him. That's when he, a lot of companies listened to him, especially on the indie circuit. The WWE had Vince McMahon Jr., who is now, he was
Vince,
the godfather of wrestling at this point.
Yeah.
And he did great things too. But in the indie circuit, they had the talent that the WWE had, the big talent. Ric Flair was one of those talents, and my favorite wrestler, who I'm wearing his shirt here, right here. The man they call Sting actually owes a lot of his career to Ric Flair.
Absolutely.
Ric Flair refused to work with anybody but Sting for a while because he thought Sting was the next guy. He said, "No, this is who I'm fighting. This is who's getting the title. This is who's beating me for the title," and that's the end of it. Even after Sting was injured, Sting got injured at one point. Right when he was supposed to win his first world title against Ric Flair, he got injured like a few weeks before. Lex Luger was also in, it was called Jim Crockett Promotions then.
Jim Crockett, yeah.
Before WCW, and Lex Luger was in it, and they were going to push Lex Luger then. Lex Luger was going to step in for Sting, and they were going to put the title on him briefly, until Sting could come back. Ric Flair said, "No, I'm not doing that." He said, "I promised Sting that I would have the title when he came back, and we would face for the title." And he refused to drop the title to Luger in the interim.
See, back in the day, when you're talking about back in the Indies, and so, it was a lot more, there were a lot fewer contracts, a lot more handshakes. So when a wrestler gave you his word, when a man like Ric Flair told you something, he was going to stand by it. And the thing that really made Ric Flair the golden boy, back then and throughout his entire career, the thing that is so essentially Ric Flair, and why I think he deserves the top spot in my Rushmore anyway, is because Ric Flair can make anybody look like $1 million.
Yes, he can. Not only does he look good when he comes out there and cuts a promo, but he can put anybody over.
He can make Hulk Hogan have a 5-star match. And any man that can make Hulk Hogan have a 5-star match belongs on the Mount Rushmore. We'll get to Hogan later. I have some thoughts on Hogan, but we'll save those for a little bit later. We're talking about the man right now.
Yeah, let me give you some more stats here for Ric Flair.
I like stats.
He's the 21 times across the organizations that we had mentioned, including the NWA, the WCW, and the WWF. He obviously was never in the TNA, and he's obviously never been in AEW.
I do believe he was in TNA, but he was never like really an in-ring competitor, was he not?
I think he only ever did
like an owner,
special guest star. I think he had a very short contract.
I remember him and Hogan doing something on TNA before they were both out of there.
He was the inaugural WCW World Heavyweight Champion. Mm-hmm. He was the first Triple Crown WCW Triple Crown Champion, which if you don't know, the Triple Crown Championship is when you have held the WCW World Television title, the WCW United States title, and the WCW World Heavyweight title at different times, not necessarily at the same time. Sting also, the man they call Sting, also a Triple Crown Champion as well.
My favorite wrestler, also in his company, a Triple Crown as well, the man Shawn Michaels. I believe he's actually I don't know what they would call the 4 Crown, but he's won the tag team titles as well.
That would be called a Grand Slam champion.
Shawn Michaels, my personal favorite, is in fact Grand Slam champion.
Yes. Ric Flair would also be one of the Grand Slam champion in the WCW. But for anybody who doesn't know, in the WWF, a Triple Crown champion was anybody who held the European, Intercontinental, and World Heavyweight titles. Again, not necessarily at the same time, but at different points in time.
Although Shawn did hold them at the same time.
No, he never held the Intercontinental title at the same time as the World and European titles.
But he held the World and European together, and I think at some point there he also had the tag belts with Hunter.
Yes.
with Triple H.
And he held one of either the Intercontinental or World title with them as well.
He was draped in gold at one point. That was a little excessive in my opinion, but we'll get there.
We'll have to check the stats, but I also have to. He may have also been a World Champion, Tag Team Champion with Diesel as well. I'd have to check the stat on that. But back to Ric Flair, because that's who we're talking about. The first person that we both agree would ground out the Mount Rushmore. He also was a WWE Triple Crown champion, Ric Flair. I didn't know that. I just learned that now. Yeah, he actually was both.
I know his WWE tenure, at least back in the day, back in his prime, was very short.
Yes, but he is a 2-time WWF World Champion.
But when did he ever hold the European belts?
When he came back after WCW had folded.
Really?
Yes.
That is an interesting fact I didn't know.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, the Triple Crown of the WWE does not, in fact, include the European Championship. The WWE's version of the Triple Crown is the Intercontinental, the Tag Team, and the World title.
Ah, that makes sense.
The European title, because the European title was fairly new, and that was just debuted in the 90s. We'll have to do, that'll have to be a separate conversation at some point.
That's all right. You can go back and edit out that last bit.
So, yeah, I mean, Ric Flair, he dates all the way back. I mean, he's got 50 years of in-ring action, so there's definitely no argument there.
No, there's no argument that Ric Flair's sitting up there and sitting in a place of pride. I don't think we're going to agree on anybody beyond that point, honestly.
It's very possible.
But along the conversations that we've had throughout the years, you and I have played hundreds of hours of wrestling games together. We've had this conversation probably 100 times, 100 different ways, and I don't think we're really going to agree beyond that point.
Actually, one more thing I want to bring up on Ric Flair, because you did touch on it. He is the founder of the Four Horsemen, which was the original stable. It's where the name comes from, the stable.
Revolutionized how stables were seen.
We will certainly dedicate their own. The Horsemen will have their own podcast at some point in time, their own episode. I'm sure.
I'm sure we could easily fill an hour worth of just
talking about the Horsemen.
Stories.
Yes, absolutely. So,
all
right, let's hear the.
Blah, blah.
It's all right.
That part
yeah,
out too.
It's all good.
Best spine buster in the business to this day. He threw one down in AEW about 2-3 months ago. Looks as good now as he did 15, 20 years ago.
You're talking about Double A Arn
Anderson.
The Enforcer, absolutely. All right, is that who your second name is?
No, absolutely. I mean, Double A, all credit due to Double A Arn Anderson. But no, I thought I'd like who would you see as second behind Ric Flair?
Well, I mean, if you're going to me, then I would have to choose my favorite wrestler, the man they call Sting.
Sting?
Yes, I would have to include him. I will be happily to list his resume for you as well. He is a 10-time recognized by those that are recognized by PWI. He is a 10-time World Heavyweight Champion. He has obviously held the tag titles in the WCW as well. He's also a Triple Crown champion and the Grand Slam equivalent. He also took a year and a half off of he did things in the ring when he turned into the Crow Sting, but he did not have a sanctioned match for more than a year and a half, and just did character development. In that year and a half that he took off, he could have held the title 4 or 5 more times during that time.
During a very tumultuous time in WCW.
Yes. The people were not, at that time, in both organizations, people were not really getting more than a few months, 6 months, really, at a time.
I mean, Hogan,
even his reigns got broken up. He lost the belt in fractures. He lost the belt once to Lex Luger for a week. When Sting finally did come back from his whole character development into the Crow Sting, which is what I'm referencing to in the year and a half that he had taken off of actually not wrestling a match, and then he came back, which is when WCW also had the largest pay-per-view buy of its history, was when Sting came back and faced Hulk Hogan for the world title, and even that was stripped like a week and a half later. So Hogan had so much sway in the WCW. But I would have to go with Sting. That's the chief point of what I'm saying, is that I would have to go with Sting because he was the franchise. Listen, not to get ahead of ourselves here in terms of talking all the different faces, but would it help you to understand if I also am going to put the Undertaker on that for the same exact reasons that I'm putting Sting on?
See, I personally wouldn't put Sting up there, and I'll tell you my reasoning behind that. A lot of it is for the reason you said. He didn't have a match for a year and a half. That's time when he's not in the ring.
But he was there. No. He was there still. That's when he was doing the run-in on the NWO. That's during that whole The Crow development. It was character development. He wasn't gone. He didn't disappear. He took off from sanctioned matches for character development.
But see, that's a whole year of his career, a whole year in the prime, when his body is good, when his body is ready to go, that he wasn't in the ring competing, like you said, sanctioned matches. We would see him, yes, time and time here, time and time there. But
I mean, you saw him every week when WCW was kicking WWE's ass in the ratings wars. In the ring.
He wasn't in the ring.
But he was essential to the ratings wars at the time.
And see, this is why, and I just disagree with you on that.
Who would you put in the second slot then? Who would you put in his place then?
His absence from the ring, especially for that period of time, I don't care how good the character development is, his absence from in-ring
It's unprecedented.
While unprecedented and good for character development, lottie freaking da there, Janet.
Hey, have you seen
it
wrestling?
Doesn't do anything for me if you're not in the ring putting the works, and you're not in there taking the bumps, doing the road with the guys. You're not in there putting in the work. It's not the same levels for me. For me, my secondary spot behind Ric Flair.
Yeah, sure. Let's hear it.
The Macho Man Randy Savage.
No.
Yeah. You want to talk about Grand Slam champions? You want to talk about mic skills, in-ring performance? Yeah.
First of all, don't make me pull out the
Macho Man, he was in the ring constantly. He was constantly on the road, constantly working. Every house show, every show they put him behind. Oh, that's absolute an audio nightmare.
Have you heard that on the audio? We'll have to go back and check it.
He is... talk about Grand Slam champion, tag team champion, intercontinental champion, the greatest intercontinental champion of all time. Arguably,
yes,
that's another conversation.
That's also
another
its
conversation.
Own podcast. Absolutely.
Macho Man Randy Savage was a high flyer before high flying was really that good. Like that elbow drop, he got higher than. I mean, granted, you had Ricky Steamboat, and you had your. You had other people that would jump off the top turnbuckle, but somebody who was as powerful as Macho, who was also a big guy that could stand there forehead to forehead against in a flexing match with Hogan, and and stand there and get the crowd worked up. No matter whether he's a face or a heel, the crowd was always in Macho's hand, and never. At any point did Macho lose the crowd during his WCW run, even during the last little bits we got of his greatness in TNA, which obviously by then, I think by the time Macho got to TNA, it was already slowly spiraling towards the dumpster. Like, TNA is still very much in business, I understand that, don't at me, but they're not where they were. They don't have a TV contract. They're not at the point they were there. They're doing pay-per-views still, but they're not as prestigious as they were when Mach was there.
Currently, TNA is defunct, if you weren't aware of that.
No, actually, I do believe they're still putting on shows. Rhino's there, RVD's there. There's a couple of...
they went back to the indie circuit because who actually
owns
them
it's called TNA Impact now. It's not like still Total Nonstop Action. They rebranded as TNA Impact.
Yes.
Or just Impact, I think
I don't believe what's currently happening.
But Dixie Carter's no longer the owner. It's new owners. Like it's a company or a corporation, I believe, that owns them. Yeah. Actually, do you know who owns NWA right now? Do you know who the owner of the NWA right now is? Billy Corgan. Lead singer. Famous singer. Lead singer. Wow. You're going to have to edit this part out, too. I had it right up here. Billy Corgan. He's the lead singer of a band, but he's putting everything he has behind NWA. And actually, during this week and coming up on the pay-per-view All Out soon, the NWA Women's Champion is actually fighting on AEW television. She's fighting for the AEW World Women's Champion.
You're right. Actually, no, I did know that NWA I believe her was still going. I forgot that at the NWA. Yeah, no, you're right. I totally forgot that.
And that's one of the... We'll get into that. I think it's a subject we'll touch on later after we finish off Mount Rushmore. But back to the Macho Man Randy Savage. He always had the crowd in his hand. He was always physically ready to go. He had very few injuries that kept him out for long periods of time. And even his time in the commentary desk, he hated it, but he was decent at it.
So let's.
He was decent at it. So I would have Macho Man as my number two.
So where we're at here is we've agreed that Ric Flair is certainly on the list. Number one, he's got the George Washington position.
Now behind him in Jackson's position.
My suggestion was my pick was the man they call Sting. Curtis is thinking the Macho Man, so what I'm saying is we're going to circle back around to Sting because I'm not necessarily willing to yield on Sting going on this Mount Rushmore, but I'm willing to accept Macho Man as
I mean,
being
and
on
I
the
will
list.
absolutely accept Sting. I'm not going to fight you to the death on this one.
I have
just
some
wanted
stats.
to see, just give
Well,
the people a baseline.
We're going to circle back around. We're going to circle back around to Sting.
I can circle.
So let's Macho Man Randy Savage had 29 championship reigns with 11 different titles during his 32-year career. 2 as WWF World Heavyweight Champion. 4 as WCW World Heavyweight Champion. He's, believe it or not, you want to argue, and when we get to a separate podcast that is going to be the greatest Intercontinental Champions of all time, this is going to work against your favor because you may argue he's the greatest, but he's only held it one time, the Intercontinental Championship. One time, that's it.
Yeah, but I believe you'll find that reign is pretty long.
And however,
even
the WWE names him as the greatest Intercontinental.
I mean, I don't want to put a number behind it because I haven't done my research on that.
Apparently,
but I want to. He put a year or two on that belt before he dropped it.
I don't have that information in front of me, but I will say that what the WWE, why they say that, it was because the Intercontinental Championship was intended on being the secondary title to the World Heavyweight title, and apparently Macho Man, because of his popularity, really made the belt more elevated, made it more elevated than it was ever intended to be.
When Macho got into the ring,
you have to wonder if that was. It
was always 100%. When Macho got into the ring, he gave you 100% every single match.
No doubt. And you have to wonder, I don't know where I was going with that before, so we'll get away from that. But I have some more stuff. He was the 1987 King of the Ring. He won the 1995 WCW World War III. That's the 60-man 3-ring Battle Royal.
I was really looking forward to AEW doing the 2-ring thing. As soon as Corvid hit, they had postponed it, and they haven't said when they're doing it. But I was getting really excited.
I'm so excited about that, especially since they have 2 of the original 4 Horsemen currently as managers.
Again, we're gonna get there.
All right, he also headlined at 3 WrestleManias, 4, 5, and 8. It was the number 8 he was part of a double main event. He was in 4 of the first 5 SummerSlams. He was also in the 1995 Starrcade. I don't know why necessarily that might be important.
But he's also, nobody can argue with Macho's legacy.
2015 Hall of Fame inductee.
Absolutely. Post-mortem, unfortunately, he did pass before he could go to the ceremony and everything. I believe they had his brother come in and accept
it was May 20th, 2011 is when he died, or rest in peace, Macho Man.
Peace to the Macho
but yes,
Man.
I will concede him to, I will even concede him to the secondary slot.
A third slot is apparently somebody that I think we're both going to agree on. The third slot in Andrew Jackson's place, I would put the Dead Man, the Undertaker.
I will put the Dead Man on the list. I would put the Dead Man on this list.
I mean,
yes,
you go
absolutely.
to any wrestling fan's top 10 matches, at least 2 of them are going to have the Undertaker.
For many of the same reasons that I wanted Sting on the list, that I agree with the Undertaker. Undertaker was in the WCW very briefly, and when I mean briefly, I mean like one afternoon. And because the WCW at the time didn't realize that they had a spectacular...
I forget who it was at the time. I remember a story
spectacular big man.
I forget who it was at the time. Taker was telling a story in one of the documentaries I watched, and he said one of the guys who was running it, if I said the name, you'd know who it was, but I can't think of it at the moment, sat him down at contract extension time and told him to his face that nobody would ever pay money to watch him wrestle.
Yes, that's I don't know where the documentary is from, but I've heard that from more people than just in the documentary. I've heard that in other wrestling documentaries.
How do you sit down and tell the Dead Man? How do you sit down and tell Undertaker, even before he was the Dead Man, a big man that was that tall and that athletic, that you couldn't make money off him? How as a wrestling promoter do you get to the point where you have a wrestling promotion you can't make money?
I don't know.
Off Mark Calloway?
I don't know. I also credit him, and so does even Vince McMahon, because Vince McMahon is the one that gave Mark Calloway is the Undertaker's name. That's who gave him the Undertaker gimmick, but he just gave him the gimmick. It was really up to he really was the one responsible for turning it into what it became. It wasn't anybody else. They just said, here's a gimmick. This is what we want you to wear. This is how we want you to act. And everything else was born from him. And
that is something I believe is truly important in this business. The ability to evolve not only your character, but your style of wrestling over the decades. I mean, after a while, you know, your body goes through changes as you get older, and you're not going to be able to do certain things. Being able to evolve your character and your gimmick in a way that stays relevant through as many years as The Undertaker did, and through as many incarnations as The Undertaker did. And again, just like we were talking about with Ric Flair, The Undertaker in his prime, not so much like near the end there. I mean, he definitely, I think we both agree he could have retired about 5 years sooner than what he did. But in his prime, Taker was the same way Flair is. You could put him into a ring with anybody, and Taker will make him look like $1 million.
Yes, he was very good. And also, you should know that when he joined, this is one of the other reason that I consider him the other side of the coin of the Stinger in the WCW. Sting was the franchise of WCW. He had never worked for the WWE except for like maybe a week, I think, briefly. But that was even before they even had a TV show. I think he may have been under contract, but I'm not sure about that. But The Undertaker did not work for the WWF before he became The Undertaker. Yeah. When he signed with the WWF, they said, "You're The Undertaker." So that's what I mean by he was the franchise, because once he became The Undertaker, he became The Undertaker, did not change. He did not change his wrestling gimmick, which we see a lot of wrestlers do.
I mean, but he did, though. He changed his gimmick in subtle ways, from the Old West Undertaker to the Lord of Darkness to the American Badass. Those are different.
He evolved his character. He didn't change his character.
Well, yes, very true.
Okay, that's the distinction that
semantics. I'm not trying to argue semantics with you all
that's the distinction that I'm talking about. Like he evolved his character, and that's what you were saying too. But he didn't really change his gimmick the way we see some other wrestlers do, especially when they bounce from promotion to promotion.
I mean, I would say he may
not going to name anybody specific. 1, 2, 3, kid.
When he went, when he went to the American Badass, I felt that was a very major shift to the character. That was a monumental shift in the Undertaker mythos they were building at this
very much like the way from the Stinger going from the surfer Stinger to the very dark Crow kind of Stinger.
I mean, and again, and I don't want to get back on Stinger.
No, but I'm just pointing out the similarities between them is what I'm pointing out in that reference.
When Taker came back, I mean, it was after his biggest injury. It was after the longest time he was ever out of the ring for the WWF, or WWE. Sorry, I don't know if I'm ever going to get used to that.
Yeah, you and a lot of other people, I'm sure.
But when he came back as the American Badass, the crowd, the people, the fans, they lost their bloody fucking minds because they saw the Undertaker in this mythic beast that had all of this legend, all of this past with him, presented in a new way, and he was just crushing people there. He bulldozed through the entire roster.
Yes.
For the first year and a half he was back. He did a great run with DDP.
He was the one responsible for, way back in the day, he was the one that dethroned Hulk Hogan as the...
I mean, just...
in a way.
You gotta have Taker up there. I don't want to get too caught up on gushing about the Undertaker.
No, I think definitely you gotta have him on there.
But I believe on a future podcast, I think we'll talk more about dream matches, because I really want to get like in depth with you about what an in his prime Sting versus an in his prime Undertaker match would have looked like, how that would have worked, storylines. Like, I want to get way more in depth with that. I want to have that conversation for another day.
So now that we have the next 3 podcasts planned, let's continue.
But the fourth and final one is where I think we're going to run
hold on. I wanted to give you one more Undertaker stat real quick. One more Undertaker stat. His streak, his WrestleMania streak, ran 21 straight victories.
Listen, broke my heart when he gave that up. I stand to this day firmly that never should have been broken, that he should have retired with that streak intact. I was about to hit the table, but that would have been an audio nightmare.
Headlining 5 of them. He headlined 5 WrestleManias. He had 21 straight victories. We're not going to get into when he decided to finally give somebody the honor of defeating him, because that was definitely his decision. It wasn't anybody else's. That was his decision. Both times. And we're not going to talk about that right now. So we got Undertaker on the list now, and now who are you saying for the final
now,
one?
The fourth one is where I think we're going to run into a little bit more of an argument between yourself and myself.
I'm absolutely sure of that.
Because I do have who the fourth that I see is, but I also have a very big asterisk next to that, and a person who I believe will eventually replace my fourth pick. My fourth pick is Hulk Hogan, and I hate to do it. I hate to say it. He made wrestling, and again, here's the asterisk. He made wrestling famous. He brought wrestling into so many households. He brought the money. He brought when WWE went national, they needed someone to carry the flag and to take the brand to the next level. And Hulk Hogan, and was there with the take your vitamins and say your prayers and the merchandising, where the real money from the company is made. You got Hulk Hogan the T-shirt. You got Hulk Hogan the wrestling doll. You got Hulk Hogan the flamethrower. Like they slap his name on everything, and the money that he made, the character that he played, the fame that he brought to the WWE spawned an entire generation and a half of wrestling fans, an entire 2 generations of wrestling fans. But I do believe with the asterisk between how his behavior backstage has become out a lot more in recent years. You hear a lot more of the stories. People are breaking kayfabe like they've never before. You hear the way that he buried. You hear the way that that he buried a lot of really deserving talent from ever getting the championship.
Yep.
Jake the Snake Roberts never held the belt mainly because of Macho Man, or mainly because of Hulk Hogan. Honky Tonk Man, again, never held the belt mainly because of Hulk Hogan.
Yep.
There's a lot of people who never got a chance to really shine because Hulk Hogan was shining so brightly and was so...
Well, I don't know if that's exactly
so much of it. Well, maybe not shining so brightly, but he was sucking up all of the oxygen.
He was a big draw. There's no doubt about that.
He
did take wrestling on to an international level the way it had never been seen before.
And he did.
Also,
he did so much for the business that I would put him up there. But my asterisk there is, his legacy very tarnished. The way that he was backstage, the things that he did behind the scenes, manipulative.
Yeah.
But behind Hogan, and I honestly think that before he is all said and done and out of the public eye, he will take over Hogan's spot in my Mount Rushmore. And it's somebody. When I first saw him wrestle, if you would have told me, hey, you're going to say this dude's name when you're talking about your Mount Rushmore of wrestling in 30 years. Chris Jericho.
Chris Jericho,
no. From the Lion Tamer in WCW to Y2J in WWE, the man constantly puts on matches. He is a technical genius. He knows what he's doing. He knows the holds. He knows the mat work. He knows the high flying. He is a wrestler through and through. And again, he has the crowd in the palm of his hands at all time. Chris Jericho is he very often does. He is a mic master.
But see, the thing is that...
And he's reinvented himself over and over and over again, stayed current. And now with the commentary work that he's doing on AEW, I honestly cannot wait until his in-ring career is over so that we can get him on commentary for the next 20 years.
He is good at commentary.
I honestly think Chris Jericho is one of the greatest that we've seen, and I think before his career is over, he will very much solidify his place on the Mount Rushmore of wrestling.
I'd just like to point out that I think you're making my argument for why you can't have 4 faces on Mount Rushmore.
Well, I mean, we can sit here and do top 10 lists all day long, and I'm sure that we'll have plenty of top 10 list discussions in the future. But for right now, I'm saying those...
He doesn't date back far enough.
This is good.
That's my argument for Jericho. He doesn't date back far enough. No.
I mean, he's had...
Nope.
35, 40 years in the business, working the matches.
There's wrestlers that have 50 and 60.
You're not. I mean, you can go further back than that. There were guys at Wahoo back there that were doing it with Ric Flair back in the old NWA territorial
I think where
days.
we started with Ric Flair in the NWA in the 80s and stuff. I think that's where you're really looking, because that's where wrestling first started taking its first transition to a bigger brand, to a more national kind of appeal.
Wahoo Daniels, I believe, is his name.
Yes, Wahoo Daniels. But you're talking about someone who was very popular in his region.
Yeah.
Like that. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I think when in the '80s when it started getting nationalized, I think that's where you're really looking, because those are the people whose shoulders it was put on at that point.
To take it nationally, to give it a worldwide audience to what it is today.
And
so that's very much what I was looking for my Mount Rushmore.
No doubt to the people who predate all the people that we've been talking about. They did amazing things to get the people that we're talking about to where they were, to get us to, that's what I'm saying, Chris Jericho doesn't date back far enough, but to a Chris Jericho style person who can evolve his character over 35 years. And
you want to see some great old school wrestling
matches. I just don't think he predates it. I don't think he goes back far enough.
YouTube Ric Flair versus Wahoo Daniels. Watch some great old school wrestling back when they used to do it in front of a gymnasium crowd of like 35 people.
That was also when Ric Flair was still the bodybuilding Ric Flair before his plane accident, where he had to actually turn. That's where it was the plane accident. He was in a plane accident, and that's when he transitioned from his normal just Ric Flair to who's the original Nature Boy? Why am I drawing a blank on that name?
I don't know. You'd have to tell me that one. That's before my time. We can have an entire episode on Ric Flair. I want to know if it's not Hogan, let's put Jericho aside for now. I just put that as my asterisk, because I believe in 20 years we have this conversation. I believe we're going to be putting Jericho on Rushmore. But right now I'm sticking with Hogan. Who would you put on as your fourth?
Again, my fourth I would have to circle back to Sting then. I would have to circle back to Sting instead of Hogan. Hogan did great things for the wrestling. He did, but he had too much creative control.
If Sting's there, so far
we have to
you got
move somebody
Sting.
off.
No, so far you've got Sting, or you got Flair, Sting, Undertaker. Who's your fourth?
No, I agree with Macho Man.
You agree with Macho?
Yeah, no, I did agree with Macho Man. Man. Macho Man was a good choice for the Mount Rushmore. I think he was, even though I think some of why he wasn't bigger than Hogan was because of some of Hogan's suppression, but. I do agree with Macho Man. I mean,
we're basically debating between Hogan and Sting, and that's honestly not a mountain I'm trying to stand on. All right, I would absolutely.
You're yielding that.
Oh, I would yield that spot to Hogan if we were sitting here on a committee.
You would yield it to Sting.
If we were sitting here, on a committee before Tony Khan and Vince McMahon, and they were like, "What? You're yielding Hogan to Sting?" I'd be like, "Absolutely."
All right, so then the Mount Rushmore.
I'm not that hard.
So then we've agreed that the Mount Rushmore of Sting, we made this
wrestling, the Mount Rushmore of Sting. Let's see, you got 80s Sting, you got USA Sting when he was with Luger, you got black and white Sting, and then you got NWO face paint, like Wolfpack face paint Sting.
No, seriously, on the Mount Rushmore of wrestling, Ric Flair at the top. He's in the George Washington position. The other prominent position, who would we put there then?
Oh, who would we put in this place? Second place of power.
It was. Did you not write it down?
I did it as one. As the next place would be the spot behind. I consider the other prominent place of power to be where Lincoln's at, which would be on the other end.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
see what you're saying? I see as the two prominent ones.
Okay, so you're saying Ric Flair and Sting?
Because
I would be completely okay with that for so many different reasons, such as Sting and Ric Flair headlining the first ever WCW Monday Nitro match, as well as headlining the last ever WCW Monday Nitro match. I gotta put Taker there.
For the WrestleMania streak. For the different incarnations of his character, for his longevity, his endurance.
I would yield that.
It would be Flair and Taker, with Sting beside Taker and Macho beside Flair.
Yes, I would agree with that, because that way you got a WWE guy and a WCW guy, and the prominent, because Ric Flair was a WCW guy more so than his.
That. Oh yeah, absolutely.
He was more a WCW guy. I mean, he did go to the WWE a little bit. In his prime, he was there for 2 years.
Yeah.
And then he was there at the end when after WCW folded. But he was always at his biggest when it was the NWA and then the WCW. So that's the Flair that we're talking about.
Absolutely.
So all right, well then it took us I don't know where the counter's at. I can't see it from here.
I'm not worried about time.
I was just gonna look to see how far in we were, because we wanted to do the Mount Rushmore to give people an idea of where we stood in the wrestling world, and that took 30 minutes or so.
I mean, it's an important thing, and that gives you a good baseline of where you're at when you're talking to a fellow wrestling fan. You know, it gives you a good idea of where their tastes lie over the years. Some people put The Rock on the Mount Rushmore, which I absolutely understand.
See, that's why. My point is we'd have to, that's why I would be putting other, like I would say, a bigger Mount Rushmore. But I get what you're saying. We wanted to look for something.
Wanted to distill it down a little bit.
Because I would definitely put The Rock on a top 10 list.
Oh, absolutely. I would probably put The Rock on my top 5, honestly. If there was one more spot on Mount Rushmore, I would probably put The Rock there.
I wouldn't argue very much.
Yeah.
He is very charismatic. I mean, they thought that you thought you had something with Austin. I mean, Austin was great. Don't get me wrong.
No,
Austin was so popular. So popular.
But to have an Austin and a Rock at the same time,
and The Rock really took it even further.
Well,
and The Rock took it even further, though. I mean, he took it even further.
You got to love that '90s, early 2000 WWE. Like that
90s.
was when they're in their prime. The '90s.
I like the
into
90s.
the early 2000s.
Very
the McMahon Helmsley era was all right there in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Very briefly. They had the roster, they had the charisma, they had the writers who didn't care, they had a network who let them get away with murder. It just prime wrestling. Like going back and rewatching that alone is well worth the WWE subscription. You know, for a couple of months from time to time.
Oh yeah, I've gone back through and seen. Yeah, I've gone back through and watched everything from the WWE and the WCW from 1980. Up to 2001. I stopped the WCW at the dreaded Poke of Death.
Mm-hmm.
And
as every sane person
And
would.
I stopped watching the WWE. It's not that I stopped watching. It's as far as I got at the time when I still had my subscription. I got into the 2000s. It was right before the WCW was about to fold and join the WWE roster.
Which I think will end up on our top 10.
Which will be another
missed opportunities.
Yes, we do a missed opportunity. That alone will be a separate podcast.
I mean,
the WWE is going to litter the top 10 of blown opportunities. The WCW wasn't allowed. Yeah, don't worry.
Oh no, I have plenty of missed opportunities for the WCW. I could definitely bring up a couple.
I can't wait to hear that one.
In their history, but no, the WWE would absolutely reign king on that list. I mean, how you buy out your competition and then completely flop on the Invasion storyline so hard. I understand Nash, Hall, Hogan, all the big guys.
You're right. A lot of people
understand.
Yep. They had those contracts. They got paid to stay at home.
So you sit back and you make it mysterious and you freaking write. You're going to label this adult, right? You're going to label this adult.
Yeah,
right?
Yes, we're labeled adult for everybody.
Okay. You let the fucking writers write. You get your writing team and see that brings it to honestly what I think should be our next talking point is how would you fix the WWE right now? And I honestly think that nothing changes until Vince McMahon's out.
I have a one-word answer. Would you like to hear it?
I'm on the edge of my seat.
Do what the AEW is doing. That's how you make the WWE better.
You just straight up copy. You're like, Tony Khan, let me get your notebook.
You do. Listen, AEW didn't come up with this formula. They didn't just develop it. They're changing some things. They're being innovative. As you should be. But
no, I'm sitting here in an Inner Circle t-shirt. You don't have to.
They didn't come up with this formula. Eric Bischoff came up with this formula. I mean, when we say WCW, it really wasn't WCW. WCW became a national brand. They launched Nitro. All of the positive things that happened under Eric Bischoff. The only problem was they gave him Ted Turner's pocketbook and said, "Have at it."
Yeah.
So he just spent and didn't have to worry about profits until Time Warner got sold to AOL Time Warner merger, and then they realized, "Oh, wait a minute, you guys are burning so much in extra stuff that you're not really making much money."
I mean, and Time Warner just wanted nothing to do with wrestling at that.
That point. Also, yes,
it was very much a political move on their end because they were very much not about that.
Yes,
There's a lot of politics involved in that decision.
The WCW had some of the things wrong in the formula, but not everything. And what's weird is that it was the things that the WWE had in their formula, but they were lacking what WCW had in theirs. Good writing, good ideas. Eric Bischoff came up with the NWO. The NWO ruled the ratings in the W. I mean, granted, it was one
good idea.
Yeah, but
he had one good
Goldberg.
idea.
He's the one that brought Goldberg in.
Goldberg wasn't an idea. He was a disaster. Look at all the careers Goldberg ended early.
Yes, but he sold a lot of T-shirts. From a business standpoint, he sold a lot of T-shirts.
From a business standpoint, maybe, but I mean, you lost to Bret Hart because of Goldberg.
But we never really got to see anything else from Eric Bischoff. He was removed from the company, and then even when we saw him come back, he was really never in creative control. They never really let him come back.
I don't believe. Yes, AEW very much.
They are using
looks
the same
a lot
formula.
like what WCW did. Yes, they do
with
look
some
similar.
with some new innovative things that they are doing, what you need to do. You can't just copy a formula. It's a new day and age.
I think Tony Khan is a businessman, but he is also a wrestling fan. Like, he grew up the same way we did. He grew up on WWF, WCW.
Yeah.
He grew up in these great Macho Man, Randy Savage, Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair. He grew up with these, and he was a huge fan.
Yeah.
And I mean, they've got money. They've got more money. They own a significant.
Yep. Another car going by.
A significant media company and international across the entire world.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that they own a controlling stake in the Jacksonville Jaguars has been nothing but a boon to them during this whole Corvid nonsense.
Yeah.
Because they already had a place. They didn't have to go make a deal with some place or to put anything in place. They were just like, come home.
Yeah.
We've got everything we need to put on a weekly show right here, right now. And there's a lot of and I will say it is absolutely deserved criticism of AEW on social media, in different wrestling magazines, and different articles that I try and stay on top of. And the main thing that I see, and I don't want to give the freaking old. I don't want to give I don't respect Jim Cornette. I don't respect Jim Cornette in any way, shape, or form. Jim Cornette is an old man with a rifle on his front porch yelling at the kids to get out of his yard because he wants it to stay like it was in the 70s and 80s.
Dude,
Jim Cornette is a useless.
He did some things.
I vilely dislike the man.
Some things, but again, I think he's like Vince McMahon Sr. I think I think wrestling has moved beyond what Jim Cornette can offer at this point.
He gets underneath my skin, but one of the things that he has said recently that I agree with is they have a lot of big spots in AEW, like a lot of tope suicidas, a lot of jumping off, and sometimes it's done to an excess. I'm not arguing against it. Arguing against it. I love it. I love AEW. I'm the one sitting here in an AEW t-shirt. I'm a big fan of AEW. Sometimes when I'm watching my 7th or 8th tope suicida of the night, it gets a little repetitive. I'm not against spot monkeys. I love a good spot monkey match. You get me? I mean, I am praying that Jeff Hardy's contract ends in the WWE and he can join his brother Matt in AEW, and we can see the Hardys versus the Young Bucks versus in a ladder match or something like that. Two of the greatest big spot teams that have ever tag teams that have ever been produced in professional wrestling going at each other. That's a multi-million-dollar match right there, and I'm dying to see it.
Yes, you're not wrong about that. I disagree.
But at the same time, I think sometimes they do it too much. Sometimes there's too many large, big spots like that. I don't need 3 tope suicidas in every single match.
Maybe they do some of the same moves too often. Maybe. But the big spots, all I'm saying is that some of the highest ratings, except for the end of WCW Monday Nitros, usually turned out to be the cruiserweight matches. The people doing the high-flying moves.
I'm not arguing against big spots. I'm just arguing against the excess of it. Like, I'm definitely down for big spots. Jumping off ladders, jumping off the top rope, big 450 splashes. I love that shit. You know, give me a freaking...
I think that's what's helping them.
Give me a Lucha Brothers versus the Young Bucks. Let them really go and do their big thing. I'm all about it. I love it. But there just are certain times, like 2 weeks ago, I believe there was one. Who was it? I believe it was Jungle Boy or something like that. He did a tope suicida over the rope, hit like 4 or 5 of the guys, and nobody stayed down for more than a few moments. Like, there's certain times when they don't sell enough of it. Like, if you're gonna do the big impact moves, you have to sell it like it was a big impact move.
Was there another person coming in next though? Like, did they need to get back up to catch the next person?
To catch the next, like, sequence in the spot.
Yeah.
I understand that, but
That's-
no, it was really just
okay.
like a spot to give Jungle Boy to be like, ah!
You're right.
And
You're
then,
right.
like, two seconds later, everybody was back up at their corners. Like, if you're going to do the big spot, you need to sell it bigly, and they do it so much that they don't really have time to sell it bigly.
Bigly.
Hey, if the president can say it, so can I.
Yeah, absolutely. You heard it here first. No.
Yeah, go
Yes.
ahead. Walk around talking like the president. I dare.
WCW.
We're not gonna get political. You can cut it out,
WCW is oh, excuse me, everybody.
WCW is.
I'm sorry. The AEW is doing a lot of what I think was helping the WCW at the time, which with some of those big spots. And I do agree with you sometimes, not all of the time. Some of the people sell the big moves. The problem is, I noticed that it seems like when they actually get hurt is when they're selling the moves. If they take it, like I did notice, if Matt Jackson is up top and does one of those flips and he catches it, but he hits it perfectly. And he doesn't, I've seen the Jacksons land on their feet when they're supposed to be caught on a spot that they're supposed to be caught. Mm-hmm. They're good enough that they land on their feet sometimes. And what I have noticed is that when they land it perfectly and everybody's fine, nobody is actually injured, you're right, they don't seem to sell the move. But when something's done not perfectly, where they actually do have to catch them, and then you see someone catches them awkwardly, or the Jacksons land the wrong way, then they sell the move because they're actually more legitimately hurt, it seems like. I think you're right. Sometimes they don't sell the move the way they're supposed to.
And I understand that for the momentum of a match, especially if you're in the middle of a sequence of big spots that you have planned, you got to move, you got to get the people where they need to go. And I understand that part of it, but sometimes, sometimes, let the people stay down for a few minutes during the Tope Suicida. You've got Jim fucking Ross sitting at your commentary. Give him a chance to be like, my God, that man's... You know, give him a chance to sell it. Let one or two people stay down for a few minutes while, Jungle Boy grabs, Santana and throws him in the ring. They can get back at it.
Yeah, Tony Schiavone and Jim Ross are two of the best play-by-play guys that have ever called.
One of the things that I really think AEW is doing correctly over what WCW did, one of the reasons
for AEW
that I believe we're going to be watching AEW for 20 years. I honestly think AEW is successful. I believe they're going to be successful. I believe they're going to stick around in the business for a while. And one of the reasons I think they're being so successful and that they will stay around for a while is their relationships with independent and foreign wrestling.
Who else had that?
federations.
Yeah.
WCW had that a little bit.
No.
Yes.
No. The biggest
WWF also did it with WCW. AEW has already worked with the AAA down in Mexico. They've already worked with New Japan. They've already worked with NWA. They've already shown in their short time. They haven't even been on TNT for a year yet. They have already worked with 3 of their major competitors, what should be.
Listen, the problem is that WCW, going into when they launched Nitro, already had an agreement with the Mexican organizations,
with AAA organizations,
to bring up. Yeah, they're using.
Anybody that does
AEW has a relationship with all of the promotions that the WCW had a relationship with. New Japan.
To anybody that's unaware, the big down in Mexico, there are multiple smaller federations, but the biggest ones are all combined under the AAA Mexican Lucha Libre Federation, and that's those guys are pretty much the WWE below the board.
There's another big one, but I can't remember the name of it.
There is another one, but like even they recognize the AAA's championships. Like if you're going south of the border, the AAA champion is the champion. Like it's AAA is the big WWE.
They're also a lot more free about letting their wrestlers.
Absolutely, and AEW is as well. Like John Moxley, for instance, is very, very big in Japan. He wrestles in New Japan
with New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Absolutely.
WCW also had a relationship with.
And you can actually watch New Japan on YouTube. They've got several different shows up. YouTube in the digital area has been huge for the independent wrestling.
Who was the first pop quiz? Who was the first American New Japan Pro Wrestling World Heavyweight Champion?
Kenny Omega, if I'm not mistaken.
Nope. Hulk Hogan.
Hulk Hogan? Do they still recognize that? Because I know maybe Kenny was the first one to win their big Royal Rumble.
The IW, you're talking about New Japan Pro Wrestling, the IWGP.
IWGP,
yes. Hulk Hogan. Number 2, Scott Flash Norton.
Scott
Yep.
Norton.
Unbelievable, huh?
Wow.
It was when he was in the NWO, towards the end.
Scott Norton.
Yeah.
There's a name I didn't expect to come up tonight.
Yeah, but the WCW had these relationships. That's what I'm saying. That was part of their formula that was good.
They had the
And that's what
relationships, but
Vince
they weren't as open. Like
That's
they
the
didn't
part that Vince doesn't have. He doesn't. He's always been my
crush the
company.
competition. Yes, crush the competition. My wrestling. WCW may have had the relationships, but they didn't advertise them. They didn't flaunt them the way that AEW has been doing. You never would have seen the IWGP Women's World Champion on Dynamite like you saw the NWA Women's World Champion with her belt, with the NWA logo and with the stuff on their TV.
Hold on, listen. The problem is that you wouldn't have seen any woman holding a championship back then
Okay,
on any television.
Even in the men, like you never would have seen the men's IWGP champion come over and flash his belt with their logo on their TNT time.
They did. They allowed Scott Norton did have the IWGP title when he came back and carried it over his shoulder.
Oh well,
in
I
addition,
bloody well stand corrected.
In addition to that, I would also like to point out that even though the WWE was a part of it very initially, like for 3 months, the WCW committed their cruiserweight title to the J Crown Championship, which was 9 different wrestling organizations from across the globe got together and said, let's have a tournament of cruiserweight and light heavyweight contenders, and then the winner gets all. It was at the time.
Those were some amazing
at
matches.
the time,
I'm gonna have to YouTube that.
At the time,
J Crown Championship.
Yes, at the time, the WWE was part of the very first J Crown, but that didn't last very long. It was only for about 3 or 4 months.
Did they
No, it was when Taka.
Gilbert?
No, it was right after Taka lost the belt initially. If you go back to WWE TV, there's about 3 to 4 months where you don't see the light heavyweight championship at all, and then when it comes back, they put it on Gilbert, and that's why they brought it back, because that's why they dropped off out of the J Crown. Instead of giving their title legitimacy and leaving it in the J Crown Championship, they decided to pull it back and give it on Gilbert. But that's a conversation for another time. But the WCW very often had the J Crown champion on their broadcasting as well. Ultimo Dragon was one he was a long-time, multi-time J Crown champion, and he frequently walked to the ring with carrying him and Sonny Ono, carrying 9 cruiserweight titles, including the WCW, 9 different titles.
I'm going to have to go back and do my research on that. I do not know of the J Crown.
Yes, go back and look at the J Crown Championship. It was 9
well,
different, 10 with the WWE, but they dropped out very quickly, so it was 9 different organizations got together and said...
See, I joined up with I started watching WCW way late. Like, by the time I started watching WCW, the NWO was already, like, very much a thing. Like, Six was already a member.
Yes.
And I had to go back on WWE Network to see the original NWO run.
And it did happen, more early before... it wasn't as much after the NWO stuff. The NWO is really their meal ticket for...
Yeah, for a long,
But yes, see, that's what I'm saying. The AEW has these relationships with these companies from Mexico where we get to see some great wrestling, different wrestling. I think that's more key to AEW's initial success than anything else.
Continued success. I believe that's going to be a key to continued success.
They're showing us wrestlers and wrestling that we are not normally going to see unless we go to Mexico or Japan.
And I think the perfect example of that is the success that Eddie Kingston has had. Eddie Kingston came in to be a one-time shot at the TNT Championship, and they gave him the mic, and they said, go out there and take your shot. And Eddie Kingston went out there and lit it
And then he hurt his knee.
And lit it, but now they were like, no, Eddie, we're not going to bail on you. And they gave him, they're doing that angle now where he's got the Butcher and the Blade and the Lucha Bros with Eddie Kingston looking over him. I mean, he's in the pay-per-view. He's in the big Battle Royal match at the payper-view coming up.
Yeah, he's bringing up, that's the other thing. What did WCW have in abundance more than WWE when they were beating them? Stable battles, stable wars. AEW has such an abundance of stables.
And
me too, man. I don't remember time.
I don't care. I love stables. Just pour them on, give me more of them.
Yes.
I was a little concerned that Death Triangle wasn't, like, I wasn't really big with Death Triangle.
I'm a little disappointed that we might not be seeing Death Triangle now, because they might be hooking up with Eddie Kingston. Yeah,
Pac's going to be stuck in England for the foreseeable.
So,
at least
and I
until
understand.
the New Year.
And I understand. There's no reason you can't bring Pac into whatever these guys are doing.
Pac is still very much under contract with AEW.
That's
He's
right.
not going anywhere.
And you could bring him into the stable that you're trying to create right now.
I see that more of him coming back and, like, taking him out because you boys left me. I had to sit over in England, and, like, he's going to do his whole bastard thing where everything, just as I was getting going, it gets taken from me.
I don't see...
Yeah,
I could see that, but not...
I
don't see him feuding against the stable, no. I see him just avoiding it totally.
You kidding me? I tell you right now, I'd buy a pay-per-view based on Eddie Kingston versus Pac alone. I've seen 2 Eddie Kingston matches.
You're not wrong about that.
Now,
you're right. That is a gold idea. Eddie Kingston versus Pac is an idea. That's the other thing. They get wrestlers who want to wrestle, who don't want to just collect a paycheck. They want to wrestle.
See, and I think
they want to go out there and push the envelope.
See, I think AEW is walking the line between the mistake that WCW had, giving so many of their wrestlers creative control,
and their WCW is also their
McMahon's
hierarchy.
way of just iron fist.
Yes.
Like they're letting people have their say in their characters, but at the same time, Tony Khan's he's got total control. Everybody knows that. You got to get it past Tony Khan, but Tony's sitting there and he'll listen to you and he'll take your what you want to do into consideration.
Because that's how the wrestling world is always going to work. You can't script everything. Some of it has got to be, hey, I have an idea, let's try it. Oh, this idea isn't working, we have to change to something else. That happens in wrestling. If you don't want that to happen in your wrestling, then you should not be watching wrestling. You should be watching soap operas.
Brandy's original little nightmare cult thing that she had, Nightmare Collective, going on. That's a perfect example of that. They put like a month and a half, 2 months worth of TV time into it. They realized it was flopping excessively hard.
Because no one's going to buy the Rhodes family as an evil faction. I think I get Nightmare Family. Ooh, Nightmare Family. I get that they're trying to play the name and the angle. I get that. But there's no reason you can't make it Nightmare Family and it not have to be gothic and dark.
So you're caught up except for this previous week, right?
Yeah, I'm almost certain, yeah.
How long do you think it's going to be till we see Cody Rhodes again?
Yeah, he got his... Yeah, yes.
I mean, there's apparently something...
Who was it? Oh, man, who was it? I'm
Brody Lee.
That's it.
Yeah, Dark Order.
Lee. Yeah, Brody Lee took him apart. That was an interesting choice. See, I'm
they
gonna
needed something. I understand that choice. They needed something to push the Dark Order. Dark Order was stagnant.
I'm gonna go beyond the character thing here and say that it was weird to decide that Brody Lee was going to be the one to dethrone.
And I think it's because the Dark Order, they needed something. The Dark Order was beginning stagnant.
Yeah, you're right. They need the world
heavyweight
title. They were
because they had numbers. No, but you can't take it from Mox right now.
Oh, you absolutely...
You cannot take it from Mox right now. You're in the middle of the Mox. That's like taking it out of Stone Cold's hand 2 months after you gave it to him.
No. It's like when you take it out of Stone Cold's hand and you put it in the corporation's hand, meaning The Rock.
No.
That's... Are you kidding me?
I like what they've done. I like them putting the TNT title. No. Brody Lee having the TNT title is going to give it... See, Cody, over the last months with the TNT title, has been building the prestige, defending it every week, opening it up the Open Challenge. He's been building the prestige for the title.
No doubt.
Now, Brody Lee comes in and gets to be the big, bad nightmare motherfucker that's going to hold on to that belt until somebody pries it out of his cold, dead hands. Like... I see what they're doing, and I absolutely approve it. Plus, it gives the Dark Order the TNT Championship, which gives them the legitimacy that they have been greatly missing without fucking up Moxley's run.
So my counter argument is actually going to work against me because I just thought about it. Because the thing is, I would say, why aren't my counter argument to what you were just saying is that why aren't Sammy Guevara and Ronald Darby Allin.
God, Ronald Darby. No, that's
Ronald Darby, the Eagles cornerback. I continue to get these two guys' names.
Eagles. Eagles.
Darby Allin. Why aren't Darby Allin and Sammy Guevara feuding for the TNT title? And then the answer to that is because Darby Allin might be feuding or might get into the world title picture with Jon Moxley, and So
and Sammy Guevara is obviously doing his thing. I think you can still do that. Like it can still.
I think you put Jon Moxley against the Dark Order, and then you get another stable to back him up after he gets his.
Jon Moxley versus Dark Order couldn't work right now. I mean, they did it, but it couldn't have interrupted Moxley's run right now. Right now, they're doing the whole Moxley versus MJF, and I am
Yeah,
I
that's
am
interesting
praying
too.
that MJF does not win that.
You're
title.
not wrong about that. John Moxley
Like,
and
I
MJF,
understand
they're
MJF
doing
is
a
a
good feud.
great heel. I understand he's a great heel, but please, for the love, AEW, please, if you're watching this at all, do not put that title on MJF.
Not yet.
Ridiculous.
Not yet.
Like, he's far too young for it.
Not yet.
Like, he seriously is not ready for a title run. You need to hear me here.
Yeah, just not yet. It's just not yet. That's all. MJF will be a world champion, but not yet.
Not yet. Just the
AEW
is so annoying.
The AEW is not ready for his type of heel champion. I don't think.
Here's a question
if
for
you
you.
give him the belt, he's not going to be able to hold it for very long. So it's going to be a short run because you can't have, even though people love to boo MJF, you put the world title on him, people are going to boo him out of the stadium. But the problem is, do you want people boo your new company? You're trying to compete. Do you want people booing your champion every week?
Which is why I don't think we're going to see the end of the Moxley era for a minute yet. I think Mox is going to hold on to that belt for good.
Probably.
I think it's going to be. I think we're going to go into 2021 with Mox. I think we might even go into the middle of 2021
and it
with
would
Mox.
be.
And I got no beef with that. I like Mox as champ.
No, because Jericho had a good long title run, and he is more of a heel than a face. So
yeah. Do you see Jericho ever getting the title back? Or do you think Jericho's coming to the end of his career?
I don't know that he's coming to the end of his career.
I think he's got maybe 5 more years left in the ring.
I don't know that he is going to go for the title, and if he doesn't, I believe that that's by his choice. Because I think he
anytime Jericho's like, I'd like to be champion.
He took the title because AEW's building a company. They were small when they first launched, and they were. Their roster was not very large when they first launched. And
full of great names, no doubt, but
it was small.
Yeah,
yes, good names. So I think I get why they gave him the title. A guy with his history gives it instant legitimacy. Mm-hmm. He had a fantastic title reign where he had good feuds with Cody Rhodes. A little bit meh on the whole you can't challenge for the world title ever again match, especially since he lost it a short time later. Jericho, that is. So I'm not so, but he added legitimacy. He added legitimacy, but now you have stars who need that belt. Jericho does not need the world title in order to get a reaction from the crowd. He's a superstar. He's beyond such things. He's the new Ric Flair, the new Rock, the Triple H.
He really is. He's a superstar in his own make, but I honestly believe that we'll see Cody Rhodes with that championship before the time's out. That whole never going to challenge for it again. I think you easily get around that. Just if I'm in the writer's room, I think you easily get around that enough by having the champion challenge him. And just have the champion challenge him. You get someone like a Mox. Let's say Mox in a year. It's like, I've beaten them all. I beat Brody Lee. I beat MJF. I beat everybody except Cody Rhodes. And you have the champion challenge him, and then he's not challenging. The champion's challenging him.
Yeah, I agree with you. And
that's easily how you get around that.
I do see
and I believe we'll see that before the end.
I do also agree that Cody Rhodes will probably hold the world title at some point in time. I mean, he is one of the guys that are,
the face of the company.
Yeah, I mean, he did do it. He should be the champion.
Absolutely. I believe he deserves a championship run before he's done and calls it, back office for the rest of his career.
Yes, and I like the TNT title. I think that's a fantastic undercard title. And
now that they finished it,
they're building, yes.
Yeah, that silver belt had its charms, don't get me wrong, and I hope that thing is sitting up in Cody Rhodes' office somewhere. But the gold belt, now that it's done and complete, I really, really like that. Once I get my AEW belt, I'm still waiting on it. I don't want to give a shout out to the company yet because I'm still waiting on
it. Debut it on the podcast.
As soon as but when it gets here, the first one we do after that, I'll show it. But yes, I did order an AEW replica championship belt, so once that gets here, I'll show that off. But
I think it's going to be about time to take a quick fiver. We're going to take a brief intermission.
I'm down for a fiver.
We're going to take a brief intermission. We are going to have more. And I think what we're going to start with next is going to be, I would like to talk about the tag team division because we're talking about the AEW titles and who should have them and how they're gaining prestige. And I have lots to say about the AEW tag title picture.
I too have a lot to say about that. There's a lot going on there, and we definitely need to discuss that.
Yes, so we're going to take a quick break, and then the next part we'll start with that.
Word from our sponsors.
Okay, we are back here with part 2 of our discussion here. Episode 2 of The Boiling Point. I'm, of course, JD, and I'm with Kurtis, One Sky. And we were talking about wrestling, and we went over a number of different topics. And before our break, we were about to talk about the AEW tag division. We had talked about their singles division.
Greatest current tag team division in professional wrestling.
With the exception of one thing, of course.
Well, before we get into that, I do want to say that it is my firm belief that I think the AEW has the strongest tag team division that I think we've ever seen in professional wrestling. Period.
Yes. Well, the WWE has more often than not had a strong tag team.
Well, that's
division.
undeniable. They've gone decades treating their tag team belts like like
I mean,
props.
really, the only time that was really when it was at its best was when they had the Hardys, the Dudleys, Edge and Christian, and a number of other tag teams on their roster. That's when it was at its best, but that was a long time ago. There's
a point, once you get behind kayfabe, where every championship is to an extent a prop, but WWE especially with their tag team belts went out of their way to show that their belts were nothing but props.
Yes.
And unfortunately, I believe the AEW is starting to make some mistakes early in their tag team title belt.
Let's talk about the mistakes.
History.
Let's talk about the mistakes they're making.
Listen, I think we both agree that right now the belts being on Hangman Page and Kenny Omega is just a ridiculous thing.
It was a fine thing to start with. It's fine. You want to have two stars who came together to form a tag team, which happens very frequently in wrestling history.
They were members of the Elites already, so
Stone
it made
Cold
sense.
and The Rock came together to be tag champions at one point in time. Sting and Kevin Nash were WCW tag team champions at one point in time. We've had plenty of people that come together to form and get tag team title runs. You want to do that for your first ever tag team? Fine. I'm fine with that.
Second, please, no erasure.
Who was the first?
SCU.
Oh, shoot, that's right. I'm so sorry. Oh, my gosh. Yep, correct me.
No erasure here. No erasure
oh, my goodness.
here. Scorpio Sky and Frankie Kazarian were the first AEW tag team
that was
champions.
And that was a good decision to make. That was,
yes,
they were a great tag team to have on.
They had a nice long run, and then it was the dark times.
And then find the Hangman Page and Kenny Omega. You want to have two stars, because at the time, you didn't have a super strong division, even though I would argue that other tag teams could have argued.
Yes, I would very much argue that point.
Yeah, there's plenty of other tag teams you had that could have fought SCU for the tag titles, but you chose to take two stars and put them together. Fine. Why do they still have them?
I don't understand. That's where we're at.
Why?
As soon as the pandemic hit, as soon as lockdown goes into effect, and your storyline goes, because they were building to something there with the whole Hangman being away from the Elite. They were building towards something there, and then Hangman has to go off into the woods because of Corona for X amount of weeks. Yeah. He didn't come back until like the night before or the night of the pay-per-view.
And they've still only defended him once or twice since they've both been back. What?
I think the whole idea of putting that on them could have worked, because I think they had a storyline. I think they had a storyline that we're never going to be able to really know, or that obviously we're not going to see. I think they had something planned where Hangman and Omega were only supposed to hold on to those belts for so long. But then as soon as Hangman goes away, Hangman had to go away for Corona concerns. I don't know the exact story, I'm not a behind-the-scenes guy, but Hangman apparently had to go away for a couple of weeks, so you couldn't just rip the belts off them, being your second ever tag team champions. You couldn't do that. You can't just remove the belts from them and let them go.
1 second. I have 1 point to make.
The second Hangman gets back, 2 weeks after they get back, they no longer should have had those belts. The best friends could have those belts. We disagree on the best friends, but the best friends wrestled 3 times in one taping. They taped 3 Dynamites in one taping session, and the best friends wrestled 3 times in 24 hours. That shows a loyalty to the company. That shows a willingness to go to the bat for the company. And if you go back and DVR, I have them all DVR'd, or if you go back on demand, if they go back that far, they put on 3 really good fucking matches.
Yes, you're not wrong. They are hard workers. They are hard workers. And they're great performers as well. I don't care for their gimmick, but that's fine. I won't deny their in-ring ability.
Their gimmick definitely could use some work. I like what they got going on right now. I like the feud they got going with Santana and Ortiz. But I mean, the best friends are just one in a long list of people who deserve those belts more than Kenny Omega and Hangman Page. Kenny Omega should be a top world contender. He should be a heel, and he should be the top world contender going against Jon Moxley right now.
Hold on one second here, because we got a couple of things going on. So let's talk first about my point about if Hangman Page or Kenny Omega had coronavirus concerns for whatever and they couldn't perform, fine.
I understand.
There are plenty of instances where championships have been stripped or even vacated or even an interim champion named when something like this happens. So they could have done that, but their tag team division did take a hit during the initial outbreak. There wasn't a lot of tag team wrestling.
See, the problem
on their shows.
The problem, at least in my opinion, with stripping of the belts or naming an interim is because it's so early in the history of the belts. Like, you have to make a decision. Do we just not have them defend the belts for 3 weeks or a month and a half? Or do we, I see it taking a hint of prestige away from the belts if you strip your second ever champion.
I'll concede even that you don't strip them, fine. But they've been back now for a couple of weeks.
For a number, like a month or two at this point, honestly.
Yes.
There is no reason for them to still be holding these belts.
Why do they still have them?
The only thing I can think of is that they're going to drop them to FTR at this pay-per-view this Saturday.
That has to be what they're doing.
That's tomorrow.
Well, why are you waiting
at this time of recording, All Out is tomorrow.
If I'm the Lucha Brothers or I'm the Young Bucks, I am having a problem with FTJ coming in and getting FTR, and them coming in and just getting the tag titles. They're a great team, and I do think
the two teams you mentioned there, I believe, should be the two teams that are in the contention for the tag team belts. One of those teams should have had it by now. Lucha Brothers I don't think they care as much because, I mean, they've got belts down in Mexico. They've got belts in the AAA. They are the current, AAA tag team or something champions, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to look that up to confirm it, but the Lucha Brothers, they're belted in several other... They've got championships around their belt right now. And with the Bucks are management. They're EVPs. There's always going to be that little bit of question anytime the Bucks get the belt. I understand the Bucks behind the scenes not wanting to put the belts on themselves, just like Cody didn't want to put the world belt on himself. They're EVPs. They're management. They're always going to be a little bit of bullshit talk with them anytime that they're the champions. So I understand them pushing the other teams, but you got the Best Friends, you got the Lucha Brothers, you got
the Young Bucks.
You got the Young Bucks. Yes, again, but I was trying to stay away from the Young Bucks, but you got no Young Bucks, you got SCU, you got FTR. See, FTR is a real big deal because, I mean, they were the free agent signing for AEW. Granted, they got Moxley, they got one or two other people, they got Matt Hardy, which was a really big sign for them. But FTR had several offers. AEW shelled out for FTR. And here's where I think this is going. And I'm going to drop this on you because I think FTR wins the belts at the pay-per-view this Saturday.
I think if you don't, that's a huge mistake.
I think FTR wins the belts the pay-per-view on Saturday. I believe either at the pay-per-view Saturday or shortly after the pay-per-view Saturday, they are revealed as the Four Horsemen. I believe Tully and Arn, FTR, I believe we're going to see FTR, Hangman Page, and the fourth member is a little bit of a wobble there. I could see it going one of three different ways for the fourth member of the new incarnation of the Four Horsemen. It could be Cody Rhodes. He has history with Hangman Page. It could be Shawn Spears. Or it could be, who's that other freaking guy that Tully's messing around with, that Tully was seen with? I can't remember who the other guy was. Thank you.
Not the Murder Hawk. He's another, isn't he? He's another bigger guy, right?
Something like that. I see it either being Cody Rhodes or Shawn Spears. I see it being FTR, Hangman Page, and then either Cody Rhodes or Shawn Spears.
I don't know.
I can see Shawn Spears because they need.
It looks like they're going to set up with Kenny Omega and Hangman Page.
And exactly, I see that as a great feud because then the Elite solidifies against their feud against the Horsemen. Because right now the Elite are doing dick. What's the Elite doing right now?
What's the deal with Hangman Page in the episode where he stopped the Young Bucks from winning to be able to challenge for the tag
Classic
titles.
manipulation. You saw
Dude,
in the
what's
episode
up with
before
his
that.
eyes are all dark. There's something else going on
They're
there.
working the classic alcohol. They're working the classic alcoholic angle with Hangman Page.
Yeah, but I don't want to see that in the start of the
turning
Four
towards
Horsemen.
turning him towards going to the Four Horsemen, and then maybe they dry that alcohol angle up a little bit. I don't know. But him hanging on, I mean, he's been trying to get away from the Elite. Before him and Omega even got the belts, he was like, I'm out of the Elite. I'm leaving the Elite. I don't want to be in the Elite anymore.
I mean, I like everything you're saying because I don't like the Elite anyway. So.
I'm not a big fan. The Elite's doing jack shit right now.
I
so you have the Horsemen. You have the Horsemen solidify.
I appreciate you had the Elite at the beginning, and I appreciate why you had them. I'm a stable guy. You're a stable guy. We like stables. And it made sense right at the beginning. Yeah, it made sense at the beginning when you really didn't have a huge roster to come up with one big stable to battle against the Inner Circle, which was the only other big stable at the time. But we're past that now. That is gone, and the Elite don't do anything. They're not even banded together.
I mean, you don't.
I agree with you. I would love to see another incarnation of the Four Horsemen.
Because we got Tully and Arn, and they're both. Arn went.
The only way you're going to get Arn with Cody then.
Arn went. And he was sitting there when they did the contract signing for FTR. He went and he talked to them all secretly behind the contract and everything.
That was before they revealed Tully.
I think that whole thing was just a work. They're working it.
Tully and Arn didn't see eye to eye in that conversation when they had in the ring.
It's all a work. They are masters at their craft, Gunner. They are masters at their craft.
That'd be something.
I think if it's not the end of this pay-per-view, pay-per-view, by the end of the next pay-per-view, it ends with everybody throwing up the
floor.
All right,
so this is what I say to that. I absolutely agree with you. FTR, perfect start to reform the Four Horsemen. They won't be they'll be the tag team. That's great. I do agree with everything going on that Hangman Page would be a good fit with those two in any stable.
And then Hangman Page can fight for the world title against Kenny Omega.
See, I'm not even thinking that. I was thinking, I think you'd have to put Cody Rhodes in there. Cody Rhodes being the Ric Flair. Unfortunately for him, and I don't know if that's by design or not, but because he doesn't like being the guy because of being in control and stuff, but it looks like it's going to shape up that he's going to have to be the guy of the Four Horsemen.
We're not going to get Cody Rhodes back for a while, at least for a little bit. Behind the scenes, Cody Rhodes is best friends with Stephen Amell.
See, now listen,
he's got a new show, new movie or something that's filming that he's got a part for Cody in it. So Cody's going to go do some filming for a couple of months. So we've got at least a couple of months of no Cody on TV. So if they're going to do this Four Horsemen anytime soon, they're going to have to pull the trigger without Cody.
No. You wait that long. You announce it whenever his comeback.
I mean, go back, look through the last 4 weeks. They've been throwing the four up.
This gives time for Hangman Page to resolve his alcoholic bullshit with Kenny Omega.
And his feud with Kenny Omega.
Yeah, because they're going to lose. They're going to lose to FTR. Okay, Cody will cost them the belts. That's such a readable play.
Not Cody.
Or no, I'm sorry, Hangman Page. Thank you for correcting me. Hangman Page will cost him and Omega the titles.
Absolutely.
It'll be a classic. Turn your back on. I'm not taking the tag. Kenny Omega is forced to do the whole thing.
I see his booze. Like he'll be drunk or something going into it, and he'll be drunk. But I don't see it being the classic. I'm not going to tag you in.
No, he'll be drunk, but it's gonna be classic in the sense that whether he's too drunk or he's drunk and then just decides to walk away because Kenny wants to reach out for a tag. It's going to be the classic partner turn on the other one, but not physically.
It'll be one of the old school classic partner turn things. I see it going down like that.
Without actually, because sometimes the turn happens where you don't assault your partner, you just walk away from him and let him.
Now, if they do it right, it'll work even because over the last couple of weeks, they've been hinting towards Kenny's turn to the dark side, especially if you've been watching Be the Elite. Do you watch Be the Elite, the YouTube?
No, I don't, but I've been seeing Kenny Omega's weird heel turn.
And on the Be the Elite series on YouTube, they go a little bit more deeply into stuff, and Kenny's coming towards a heel turn anytime now.
Oh, no doubt.
And if you do it like a sympathetic turn against Hangman, or you go completely out of right field and you have Omega be the one that snaps and costs him the titles, then that sets up Hangman for a classic good guy versus bad guy feud.
But then that ruins your match. I don't think.
Have you watched any of Kenny's matches from New Japan when he's the heel? Kenny Omega is a superstar as a heel.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying if you're going to have Hangman Page with FTR and the Four Horsemen, it wouldn't make sense to leave him 1-on-2 against them for the tag titles.
Well, I mean, they've been from the beginning that they were about getting the championship. They've already done that on TV.
Yeah, no.
The whole Hangman, oh, I respect you even if you guys win. They've had that whole moment during a TV backstage thing. So they've done that.
Oh, so you're saying,
respect you, you respect them.
Hold on. So what you're saying then is
they have a fair match right down the middle until Omega fucks up or Omega betrays Hangman. And leaves Hangman out to dry, or maybe Omega hits Hangman with the D trigger by mistake, like something stupid. Like that's the way I see it going more.
But that doesn't play with
the
his
classic.
drunk angle.
I accidentally hit you with my finisher thing.
But that doesn't play with the drunk angle.
Maybe they're gonna run the drunk angle for a little bit longer. Maybe he's gonna be the Scott Hall of the Four Horsemen.
No,
maybe
I'm saying that's gonna resolve itself.
FTR always comes down with a cooler of beer. Maybe they're just gonna let the beer drinking thing go for a while.
This whole thing is going to what I think. The whole thing is going to come down to Hangman Page and Kenny are going to lose the titles.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know exactly how.
One way or the other that we just discussed, they're going to lose those belts Saturday.
But that sets up a Kenny Omega Hangman Page feud. Okay, so Kenny Omega's turning heel, right? How does he do that on Hangman Page, who might be teaming with FTR, who are kind of heelish?
Hits with the D trigger.
No, I don't think it's that. I think you're right. I think Kenny Omega is not Kenny Omega. I'm sorry. I think Hangman Page is in bad shape, right? Whether or not he's drunk, I don't know. But I think you're right. I think Kenny Omega turns on Hangman Page, and then that's how Hangman Page and the potential Horsemen become faces, is with the sympathy, because Hangman Page is obviously rough, and the FTR have been there for him. They're helping him through it, but Kenny Omega's turning his back on him, kind of thing, right?
See, and then I think they formed the Four Horsemen with Shawn
when
Spears.
They bring Cody Rhodes back.
I think they originally formed it with Shawn Spears.
No, I don't think.
And then
no.
I think they do. You got to deal with Shawn Spears. Shawn Spears is around Tully Anderson. There's two options here. You either have FTR and Hangman Page beat the living shit out of Spears to show that he's no longer with Tully, or Spears joins the Horsemen, and then when Cody comes back in, you kick out Spears.
Nope, you absolutely.
There's an act of betrayal or something like that.
You absolutely cannot kick someone out of. If you want this to be a real Four Horsemen and not just some shit stain,
I agree with you.
You cannot have one of your Four Horsemen be kicked out within the first few months of having it.
Then it's going to be dragged out at least until
you're gonna have a real
after All Out before we see the Four Horsemen.
Everything I've seen from the AEW,
Cody's going to be out at least 2 to 3 months.
What I expect from the AEW if they bring back the Four Horsemen is a year at minimum, 12 months where they reign supreme,
world and tag,
everything.
World and tag.
Everything. Yes, the TNT title will be jumped around the way it does, but the Horsemen will also have it. At times,
I'm sure they'll have all of them.
All 4 titles. Okay, they will reign supreme. That's how you have to do it. That's the only way to do it and make it legitimate.
I couldn't agree more. I fully agree.
They would have to reign for at least 12 months.
But if they're going to do it in the short term, it's going to be with Shawn Spears. If they're going to,
I'll concede that if they do Shawn Spears, fine. But then no Cody Rhodes. You can't kick out somebody that early.
Yeah, I mean, it would give Shawn Spears something to do. You got to remember at this time last year, Shawn Spears was in the main event with Cody Rhodes. Shawn Spears went into AEW expecting to be a main event guy.
The thing you said about Arn being there to consult them, FTR on the contracts and stuff like that. Arn could switch because the Nightmare Family's really falling apart. They're
Cody down.
Getting rid of
they got.
Yeah, they're going to get rid of Cody.
Dustin, with the legend that he is old and obviously on his last run. QT Marshall's nothing.
As Chris Jericho says, QT Marshall.
Yeah, he's a mid-carder. You're not going to put the world title on QT Marshall.
I don't know what they're doing trying to hold that together.
I will give him this. Brandy's wrestling ability has really come along in the last couple months. In the beginning of the first couple Dynamites, you see Brandy wrestling back in the day of Dark. You even go on some of the Darks more than 6 months ago. So Brandy is definitely green as hell, but now her wrestling skills have seriously evolved.
So with Cody is now going to be out, you say, because he's got other commitments, so they're using the injury storyline.
2 to 3 months easy before we see Cody.
So what you need to do, if you want Brandy to have a stable, then you have to have her reform one. Even if you keep Dustin, QT Marshall is nothing. I'm sorry. So they have nothing. You got time to disband that and get rid of that. There's nothing. They don't have nothing.
You can keep the Nightmare Family around, but you can't have. I mean, you got Arn Anderson. What? And he's coaching QT Marshall. He's the head coach of the Nightmare Family.
Yeah,
what? He's coaching QT Marshall and Dustin. Dustin's. I mean.
No, he can't.
You can't leave Arn Anderson to that.
No.
You've got to have Arn Anderson out there with you.
I think you're right, because if Cody's really going to be gone for that long, then if
we've got at least 2-3 months, no Cody.
yeah, then you got to put Arn with somebody. You got to put Arn with somebody else. That's the other part of their formula. That's another part of AEW's formula that they have over the WWE. Taking
Using
the
the old
school guys and making them mentors and managers.
Cheers to that. Cheers
for
to
the younger guys.
Cheers to giving a paycheck to Jake the Snake Roberts. Cheers to
It's
giving
not just about a
Arn
paycheck.
Anderson.
You're putting them in a position to
Mike
actually
Shinoda. The fact that the WWE treated Mike Shinoda dirty. 35
Shinoda?
years? Yeah.
Mike,
the
I thought it was
referee. Shinoda.
I think it's
Shioda.
Shioda.
I think I'm thinking of the Linkin Park guy.
I think it's Shioda. Yeah.
Shioda, whatever.
Mike Shioda,
With
yeah.
the WWE, 30-some years or something like that. And
Yeah.
they just drop the guy like a bag of rice.
That just adds to the story that the WWE is hemorrhaging talent to
Drop
the
the
AEW
dude like a
right
bag
now.
of rice after 30-some years working with them. That is...
Yep. Look at who else they've done. Look at who else they've let get away.
I mean, at this point...
How many people are choosing now not to re-sign with the WWE and saying,
it's
we have another
creative,
option?
It's a creative decision. It's money or creative. Because at this point,
Yeah,
there's been
because
so
you're not
many
making
reports...
AEW. Yeah, you're not making WWE money
There's
with AEW.
so many reports of just WWE just throwing money at people. Literally just so they don't go to AEW.
And those are the wrestlers that are losing popularity
Just
because those are the ones who are
throwing
just...
money.
And those are the ones that are losing popularity because those are the ones that are just out for the money and not out for the
And
sport.
they're on NXT or they're on SmackDown once or twice a week. You know,
yeah.
once or twice
Or the people
a month.
who aren't popular enough now to be that. Yeah.
It's interesting to see the interplay between the two companies. To see AEW doing things and doing well, even through the pandemic. Like, some would even say growing through the pandemic. I mean, obviously, they've lost so much money in the live shows and everything like that.
Doing the no arena show, doing the no crowd, doing a promo with no crowd. What? That's hard. I was talking to Joe about that in the last episode when we were covering some stuff. I talked about how, man, it's hard to go out there without the crowd and cut a promo. When you're doing that, you rely on the crowd.
You're absolutely right.
Because if they don't respond, you got to do something, switch it up, change it up. There's no way to know that.
And look at the two different ways that they responded. AEW, they leaned into the people they know that could do it. Jericho had more straight up TV time with a mic in his hands and a camera on his face during the early stages of the pandemic while they were figuring everything out than he has in forever. Hey, just him saying, I mean, he cut a freaking promo on a drone, for fuck's sake. Yeah. They were like, yo, Chris, go out there, we're going to have the drone hover, we need you to cut a promo on the drone.
Matt Hardy cutting a promo back to Jericho, but with no crowd. Them cutting a promo against each other with no crowd.
Beautiful. Masterwork.
What?
There is no comparison with what WWE did because they don't have that level of talent. They don't have the people that can work the craft.
See, I don't
like Jericho and Hardy can do.
No, they do have them. They don't let them.
And see, I think and it all honestly, no matter what problem you're talking about that the WWE has right now, and there are several of them.
They're scripting too
much. They all come down to Vince McMahon.
Yes, because
Vince controls everything. He controls every single storyline. He writes the scripts. He approves everything. Vince doesn't let anybody breathe. He doesn't let them explore characters. He doesn't let them take chances. If it doesn't get past Vince, it doesn't go. And I honestly think at this point, Vince is suffocating the WWE more than he's allowing it to go.
Dude,
if he's going to let it go to Triple H, if he's going to let it go to Shane and Stephanie, he needs to step back. It is time for Vince McMahon to retire.
At the time, in the 80s and throughout the 90s and even in the early 2000s, Vince McMahon being the be-all, end-all of decision-making was the right decision for those times.
Absolutely.
Because he's the one that built it then. That's fine. It's great. It is arrogant at this point to think that you still have enough ideas or that your decision, after making decisions for so long, that every decision you make is the right one and that's it. That's a kind of hubris that I don't even know how to quantify.
I mean, all you have to do is look at the rotating door that has been their writing room lately. I mean, they brought Bischoff in. They fired Bischoff a week later. They brought freaking Paul Heyman in. They let Paul Heyman go a month later.
Because they want to try things.
Bruce Pritchard, brother fucking Love, who obviously Bruce Pritchard, anybody who knows anything about wrestling, Bruce Pritchard has been behind the scenes for decades. He obviously knows the business.
He played Brother Love way back in the day.
Yeah, if you want to see a picture of the guy, look up Brother Love. That was his in-ring career. But after he was done wrestling as Brother Love, he has been a behind-the-stage guy for decades. Dude knows the business. He knows the ins and outs. He knows what he's talking about. But at the same time, this is the dude that's writing for him right now. A dude that has been around since then. I mean...
And when they say he's writing for him, it's really
he's
just
their
him
head
and
writer.
Vince McMahon in a room.
It's him, and like he writes some stuff, and then Vince McMahon says, "No, I don't like any of it. We're doing it." And this whole Thunderdome, have you seen the Thunderdome they've got going on right now?
No.
What they've done is they went in and they made a deal with an NFL stadium, and they kind of took over an NFL stadium, very much like what AEW has been doing since this all started. But instead of having the wrestlers or a minimal crowd around the edges, they surrounded the ring with televisions. Look it up. You got your pad right there. With TVs and screens of virtual fans on like Skype and on people of watching the screen, like watching their wrestling on their computer. And it's just pictures of people doing this, like watching a wrestling, and it's just...
What's it called?
It's called the WWE Thunderdome. Look it up, man. It's one of the craziest things you'll ever see. It's literally, it's like the ring Thunderdome. And it is surrounded by these screens that they then stream.
Listen, I'm sorry.
Live people into these screens.
Hold on a second. Why is Google search one of the things? I just typed in WWE Thunder. That's as far as I am. And why is the second option? The first being WWE Thunderdome. But why is the second option? And we're not going to stay on this for very long, everybody.
All right.
WWE Thunderdome KKK.
Oh, so, I see. I was about to get into that.
Oh shit!
I was about to get into that.
Oh, it's just bad. Oh,
so you have a picture of the Thunderdome in front of you. You see, and I hope anybody listening to this take a second and open up a second browser and Google the WWE Thunderdome. It is a wrestling ring surrounded by a bunch of rings that they then stream people who sign up to stream onto the Thunderdome. People have obviously taken advantage of this. People have put pictures of Chris Benoit. People have put pictures of Chris Benoit. People have streamed KKK rallies. People have streamed AEW.
You have to be shitting me.
Kenny Omega. People streamed a picture of Kenny Omega on there. Like, people are literally getting past their monitors on a regular basis with just showing obscene and nasty-ass shit on national television. Because this is what WWE decided to do instead of, like, putting a crowd in.
Well, I'll do more research into this, but the headlines are not good, everybody.
No,
so,
they most certainly are bloody well not.
We're not going to, and this is why the WWE is failing. They have too many of the wrong people in charge that don't understand that they're the reason why they're in the shape they're in.
It is become a completely different business today.
You own the company. There's no reason you can't just take a sit back. If you still want to be on camera or something, you can still, the writer can make you an on-air character. I mean, but you got to get other people in.
Be an on-air character, but let somebody else take a little bit of the reins with writing. Open it up a little bit. Let Sean, let Triple H, let Shane and Stephanie, let somebody come in and start taking some of these reins. Because obviously Vince has lost the fucking chopping part. And that's why he just doesn't have it. He's lost the plot. He doesn't have it anymore.
That's why people. That's why.
I mean, how much did that bloody Thunderdome cost? How many millions do you think it cost to set that shit up?
I don't know. Yeah.
Whereas AEW said, "Hey, a bunch of our B and C card wrestlers go around the ring and make noise for a couple of weeks," and then they started letting a couple fans here and there, a couple fans here and there. Now they're up to 10% capacity. It sounds like you've got a decent crowd out there.
Yeah. No.
Or you can spend
done it
millions
perfectly.
doing that. Or you can do millions, spend millions doing that.
Putting the wrestlers around the ring was ingenious.
MJF and Shawn Spears betting during those first couple weeks was some of the funniest shit I've seen on wrestling in years.
And even the faces, the other side, like they did
faces
such
on one
great
side,
job.
villains on the other side, and Sammy Guevara doing the freaking cards during the picture-in-picture break. Whoever came up with that, bloody genius.
Yes, dude, they did so much good stuff. I mean, that's what I'm saying. And you know how they let that happen? Because the wrestlers had ideas.
Yes, and Tony Khan was like, hey, let's do it.
Yes.
But you know what Vince McMahon's ideas are? Vince McMahon is like, you know what? I've got an idea. Shane, Stephanie, sit around, boards. I've got a great fucking idea. I don't know why I turned Vince McMahon into Richard Nixon. But at some point...
Oh, no.
Vince McMahon sat everybody down and said, you know what? We're going to have a Raw championship. We're going to have a SmackDown championship.
Yeah.
We're going to have a Raw tag team title. We're going to have a SmackDown tag team title. We're going to have a Raw women's title. We're going to have a SmackDown tag team title. We're going to give the U.S. title to Raw. We're going to give the Intercontinental belt to SmackDown.
Yeah.
Why the hell are we sitting here with 8 different titles in the WWE?
At the time they initially did it, the only reason that I thought it was okay was because they had just absorbed WCW. Remember, when they first did it, it was after the invasion angle failed, because again, Vince McMahon was the only one having the ideas, and
listen, I think we could have an entire episode just on the failed invasion angle.
Yes,
and how
and we
we
will.
Literally would have made $1 billion
Yes.
with that.
Yes, and we will have one of those future podcasts. But that's what happened after the invasion. The invasion angle failed. They had such a roster that they couldn't. I mean, you can't have The Rock on Raw and SmackDown when you have 60 wrestlers on your roster that are all TV people. They're all people good enough to put on TV.
I agree.
When you have that many, you can't do that. So initially it made sense. It no longer makes sense because at this point you're hemorrhaging wrestlers. You are literally making up gimmicks just so that you can have people on.
I mean, plus now you've also got NXT and all their belts.
That's what
as
I'm
well.
saying. Yeah, they got 3 brands.
It's honestly ridiculous at this point. You see Bailey and Sasha or whatever. I stay up to WWE through social media. I follow a couple of different wrestling reporters and stuff like that, and I see pictures, and these wrestlers have 4 and 5 belts all over them.
Yeah.
And it's like, you got 8 active belts right now just off the top. You've got 2 each world, 2 each tag, U.S., Intercontinental, and women's.
And you didn't even include any of the NXT titles in that.
Yeah, and that's none of the
That's
NXT.
8.
That's just Raw and SmackDown. That's 8 belts just on
That's-
Raw and SmackDown.
Dude.
That's why right now, when it comes to championships, none of the WWE titles are impressive to me.
Hold on. Now let's add. What are the NXT titles too? They also have their own NXT
they have
champion.
their world champion
and the tag champions.
Do they have tag champs?
Yes.
I honestly have only watched like 1 or 2 episodes.
And they
of
have
NXT.
tag champs. And I do believe that they have their own women's.
I know they do have their own.
So you're talking about 11 titles for 3 different brands
within the same company.
Yeah.
And you wonder why none of their belts mean a damn thing.
Yes.
Like I said, WWE is the best at treating their championships like props.
The best decision that they've made in recent years was changing the world titles and making them. I hate them. Really? I like them
so bad. I hate
like
their titles. The only belt they have right now that I consider any decent at all is the U.S. title.
The
rest of their belts, I hate them. I hate them. The world titles, the big W with the blue and red, I can't stand it. I think it's ridiculous. And I like the AEW title. That's a world title.
Okay, now hold on 1 second.
That's a world title belt.
All right.
Big Goldie, Ric Flair's belt. That's a world title.
All right. Listen, in terms, you got to think, because we're not talking about, yes, you were absolutely right about both of those titles.
They're so ugly. The place that I ordered my AEW title offered me a half-price WWE title because I've been waiting so long for my AEW belt. They're like, listen, man, I've got this one ready right now. Give it to you half price, 50% off. And I was like, which world title is it? And they showed me it's the current one with the big W, with the red back. I was like, I hate that belt. No, thank you.
I want you to think it's an improvement. See, it's not as good as other companies, but it's an improvement over what it was previously.
What, you talking like Cena's spinner belt? Yeah, anything's an improvement over that.
And even the one before that, even the one where even the one that they changed it from the initial Eagle, when they initially changed it from the Eagle one to that big round gold belt with the world in it, the one that Triple H had for most of his early run, his first run.
I like the Eagle belt.
No, he wasn't the champion at that point yet. That Austin was the last one to have that. Or Triple H, I think, won that.
Smoking Skull.
No, that was again afterwards. That was after Triple H had it, and they upgraded the belt to that gold, more round belt. And then when Austin took it back from Triple H, he made the Smoking Skull belt.
Yeah.
But WWE has never had a good championship, I guess, is my chief point on that. Their chief championship has been crap.
The Golden Eagle, the one with the world, the globe, and the eagle,
only because it's history.
Right. No. I would buy that belt. If the belt replica place that I'm doing business with right now said, hey, this one, I would have bought that shit in a heartbeat.
Only because it's history. For 50% off, I would have gotten that one too, but that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a beautiful belt. I do. I think, yes, history is probably
it has history. That's the only reason why. It was never that
But
good
still,
of a
I thought it was a pretty belt. It wasn't as big as Big Goldie or anything like that. But I thought it was a respectable, good-looking, well-designed belt. You want to talk the ugliest belts you've ever seen in your freaking life?
Sure,
Look up the current tag team title belts.
No. I don't want to do that.
They are exactly the same.
Hold on.
The Raw ones are red. The SmackDown ones are blue.
And it's awful. And
ugly.
Yes, you should look them up. What they are is two Spartan helmets, kind of head first into each other. It's terrible. They are the worst designed belts that you have ever seen. As a
collector, I collect these replica championships belts. I like them. I like putting them up. I'm a collector. I will never own any of the current belts except maybe the U.S. title right now. The current U.S. title they have right now is pretty awesome.
I haven't seen the Intercontinental
They've got the Intercontinental title of late's not really all that great. If I ever get an Intercontinental belt, it'll be Shawn Michaels' white leather one. Or, just the basic...
Back when it was the old Intercontinental.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, the good one.
Back when they had good belts. None of their current belts, a belt is, at least in mind, it's supposed to mean something. It's supposed to have some prestige. I understand, behind kayfabe and everything, it's just a prop. But you're not supposed to treat your belt on TV and in design like it's a prop. You're supposed to bloody well treat it like a championship belt.
Tell that to Stone Cold.
Yeah.
But even though he threw it around and threw it in the ring and hit people with it,
he wasn't really respectful of the belt. But again,
no, but he always wanted it. Yeah, he always wanted the title though. It was his.
Yes, exactly.
He could do what he wanted with it, but it was his. I'm trying to see if I can find a picture of it. Of the current one.
Of the current IC belt? I couldn't even point it out in the crowd. If you put 5 belts in front of me, I wouldn't be able to tell you which one it was.
I'm going to take a look and see here.
Wow, that's a face I like seeing on you. Do I even want to see it? Here, now I got to see. Now you've made me freaking curious. Oh, that is so ugly. Why would they do that? It's Vince. Vince is the only one. Vince is the one that has final say on all of this. There's no one else to lay
Oh, man,
this
come on.
at
Triple
his
H, Shane, and Stephanie all looked at that and said, wow, that's beautiful.
And if they did, then none of them
You should look it up. Look up the current Intercontinental Championship, everybody. It's ugly. It belongs on the WBC Super Welterweight Champion.
Now, just again, for comparison, if you've never seen the Intercontinental belt from the 80s or 90s, Google that as well.
Yeah.
And see what the old belt looked like.
Yes. Because that was definitely the best. None of the Intercontinental
belts, they all looked better.
Except for I don't agree that the WWE World Heavyweight title, even the Eagle belt, it was never that good.
I mean, it was always inferior to Big Goldie.
Yeah,
Big Goldie is the standard.
And even the Platinum for AEW, they have a fantastic world title.
I know, man. I ordered a replica of it. I saw it after 2-3 weeks. I was like, I have to get a copy of that belt.
Yeah.
I'm waiting way longer than I would like to, but when I get it, we will definitely do an unveiling on the podcast.
Excellent. And the TNT title also looks very beautiful.
Looks very good.
Now that it's out.
And their tag team belts look really good. I like the way their tag belts look, too.
Yeah, they're not bad.
They're not exactly as I would have designed them, but I really like the design. I'm honestly thinking about ordering a set for Andrew and myself.
You know what they kind of remind me of a little bit, just from a far away view, from when they're holding them and walking down to the ring and stuff. They almost look like the old style, big flat WWE tag titles a little bit. Not exactly the same color, but the shape.
The plate shape. I can absolutely see that.
Yeah,
it's different.
That's what I kind of liked about it, because that was the one thing I always liked most about the WWE titles was their tag titles.
Yes, they're the original tag belts.
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, buddy.
Great belts. Those were really
They
good
were so good on so many
I always
people.
thought the WCW belts were a bit small. I never really dug the WCW tag belts.
I would absolutely agree with that. They did not get good until way late in WCW when they after they had completely dismantled the WCW tag division, which a tag division is very important for a wrestling organization, but we'll hold off on that for now.
I think so.
But they did, when they did a brand new tournament, they unveiled, they were similar shape and size, but they were shiny. They were brand new. They had them plated with colors and stuff. So those were not bad. Those were not bad. Certainly not like the WWE tag titles.
Yeah.
But they weren't bad. The original ones, even through the Nitro and stuff, they were just round gold belts.
Yeah, and they seemed
really,
small.
yeah.
Like, especially Kevin Nash and Scott Hall's hands.
The same problem I had with
very,
those.
very small.
That's why I didn't really like the Eagle World Title belt for the WWE. I thought it was just too small. World titles should be
I mean, but
big.
then again, I'm with you. The AEW belt, perfect example of that. Big Goldie on Ric Flair's shoulder, perfect example of that. A world title belt should be impressive. You're the world champion. Drop some money on your motherfucking belt.
The Cruiserweight title was also a very nice WCW title.
Yeah, Cruiserweight title. They definitely was a very good, as compared to WWE's Cruiserweight title,
well, light heavyweight. Yep, and
which was, again,
and that's where WCW also had them beat, was the WCW Cruiserweight division
well,
was just...
I mean, they just raided the Lucha Libre
yeah, they did. They
federations down in the South.
and
they just brought everybody
and
out.
from Japan, man. Ultimo Dragon.
Absolutely. Ultimo Dragon, Rey Mysterio, Lucian Thunderliger was in WCW for a little bit.
At the beginning, yeah.
Friggin' La Parka. Like, I mean, so many great luchadors have come and gone through WCW, and honestly, now through AEW, like the Lucha Bros are the continuation of that great Mexican legacy.
Yeah, they have a lot of good. Not even just the Lucha Brothers, they have a lot of good
Phoenix
Lucha
is
Libres
a
and stuff coming up.
superstar down below the border, like Pentagon. Superstar, main event draw down below the border.
That's what I'm waiting for from AEW next. Is where is the Cruiserweight title or the equivalent?
I think it's going to be a while. It'll be at least another year, if not 2 or 3, before we see another title. It'll be once their new show comes out. It'll be maybe after that.
Yeah, maybe.
They've got a contract with TNT for another hour of television.
I mean, you're definitely right, because the TNT title, a lot of the guys who you would put in the Cruiserweight division could go for the TNT title also.
Exactly right now. So, now, they are expanding their roster. They're obviously not picking up everybody that WWE drops off, but there is a lot of wrestlers out there that they're looking for an opportunity in AEW. AEW's got a contract with TNT for another hour of TV every week. Obviously, Corona has slowed down everything about that, but the contract is still in effect. I think it's like they extended the contract for Dynamite for like another 5 years guaranteed, and they extended, and that contract included that contract included another hour of television, a second show that they're going to do. Obviously, like I said, Corona
it slowed things down,
but eventually AEW is going to have another hour-long TV show at some point. Now, whatever form that takes is still very nebulous. Nobody's given us a direct answer about that. But we've got another hour of AEW coming on through. I'm hoping it's a secondary show like their SmackDown, an hour-long SmackDown. We've also got an AEW video game coming. Kenny Omega is a huge video game. He's been in video game production in the past. It's where he sees his future. That's where
WWE has. That's where it's going to be hard to compete with the WWE.
No,
because the WWE has the rights to so many wrestlers that they can put in their video games now.
That's true, but you got to also think about the rights that Cody Rhodes has. Cody Rhodes has a lot of rights and a lot of copyrights under his personal belt. So
but
there's a lot of that too.
Yeah,
but AEW is building the roster. All these people that are in the indies. You think Thunder Rosa doing the NWA Women's Champion, doing her run on Dynamite right now. Yeah, if you don't believe for 1 second that Thunder Rosa is going to be in the AEW video game, it's not just their roster because of the way they do business. Yeah. They can come and have individual contracts with people.
Yeah.
That they can have them and that they can bring them in and to fill out this video game roster. And like I said, Kenny Omega is a huge video game fan. He helped develop a couple of games in Japan. He's been he's a huge video game fan. You can tell half of his freaking gimmick is Sephiroth. One-winged angel, black one wing, his entrance, like... He's a huge video game fan, and he's working with a video game company, and they said that they are going to try and model the game after the old school No Mercy and that, like, era video games. They're trying to...
64 style.
Yes, that's what he said. You can find. I'm sure you Googleize it, you'll be able to find the interview somewhere. He's spoken about it 3 or 4 times now. They're never putting out a release date because obviously video games take forever and a day to create during normal circumstances, let alone during the Rona era.
Yeah, that would be very interesting to have an old style like that.
But apparently Kenny's trying to bring something like that into the modern era. Like obviously it's not going to be exactly like that. That's very old.
No, but
but he's trying to bring that flavor and that sort of like
They also had some
feel
fantastic
into
creator
the new
wrestler
era.
at that time.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, any wrestling game that doesn't have a creator wrestler in today's day and age is just pathetic. And honestly, I'm just looking forward to the creator wrestler because it's not going to be the same exact creator wrestler we've had for the last 25 years in wrestling games. You and I have played wrestling games all the way back to when they were originally just SmackDown games.
The first SmackDown.
First what? 2 or 3 were SmackDown, then it was SmackDown v Raw, and then it's been just WWE, 2K, whatever.
I even played the WCW Nitro game.
Nitro on the 64. We've played wrestling games
and
from the 64 through the PlayStation, PS2, the whole way up. We have had the same creator wrestler effectively since midlife on the PlayStation 2.
Yeah, features were the only thing really
the
that was
same
different.
Masks, same.
See, but the only problem is it got better. The moves got better as they acquired more and more wrestlers.
Better, but then they would give us features like create a belt, create a move, and then take them away the next year.
Yes, they did.
Like the wrestling games have been. Some of them have been good. But lately we haven't had a good wrestling game since.
Some of them have
2K,
amazing features,
10, 2K12.
but lacking other great features. Yes, you're absolutely right with the WWE. I don't know that the AEW first game is going to be like. I'm expecting it to be just something to give us. I'm expecting the game performance to be good, but I'm not expecting much by way of the creator wrestler or, customization or something. I think it's going to be. I don't want to say like a button masher, like a Street Fighter or something like that.
No,
but I'm thinking
I don't see
something
it being anything
a little bit closer to that, maybe.
I don't see it being anything like that. And they have to, again, I think they have to give us a creator wrestler. Kenny Omega, like I said, is a huge wrestling fan, and he's taking lead on this. Like, he's leading the charge for the AEW video game. And I honestly believe that as not only a wrestling fan, but as a video game fan for as long as he's been, I think he's going to lead us in the right direction. I think we're going to get a great game off of him. The first one may not be, like, all that amazing, and they might have some work to do and everything, but I absolutely believe we'll see a creator wrestler, and it'll be different than what we've had for the last 15 years, which that period alone is going to be great, just because it's going to be bloody well fucking different.
Yes.
Which, that alone will give us a little bit of time of like, ooh, this is fun and interesting. Not, oh, okay, it's going to be mask number 3, shade number 96, it's position 5, like we have for the last 15 years.
Yeah.
It's going to be something new. It's going to be something fresh, and I honestly cannot wait to do it. And I honestly believe that overall is what AEW has been doing a lot lately, especially over the last year since they've signed and started Dynamite. They have breathed fresh life into the wrestling industry. They brought ideas. I hadn't watched wrestling in 2 years. I was sitting there. I was watching. I think it was Independence Day on TNT. I was bored. It was just a day off. I was sitting at home, bored, sitting on the couch, watching Independence Day because it was on TNT. And then during the commercial, I hear good old JR. Oh my God, AEW wrestling. I'm Jim Ross. I'm Tony Schiavone. Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone?
Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
Chris Jericho, you gotta be kidding me.
Yep.
I went up and freaking on demand. They had all of them there. I spent the rest of the day watching AEW, and I've been hooked ever since.
Yeah.
They have breathed fresh life and given.
And then you told me, and then I started watching them too.
They have given wrestling fans who are older, wrestling fans who are adults, an avenue, an era, somewhere they can go for wrestling, because the older wrestling fans, kayfabe. We know about kayfabe. Kayfabe was broken very early when we started growing up. So we know wrestling's fake. We want to be able to suspend disbelief for a while and watch wrestling for 2 hours.
Yeah. Just give us a good story. It doesn't have to be super elaborate. It doesn't have to be overly complicated. It doesn't have to twist within itself. It doesn't have to be Inception style storylines you're writing for wrestling.
To this day, the old school heel turn villain to this day, but gives me goosebumps just like it did when I was a 5-year-old kid watching Macho Man do it against Hulk Hogan.
And that's what and it's good. It's about the performances in the ring. That's what I think drew most people away from the WWE.
The technical aspect.
Because WWE, for everything, never was really much for diversifying their matches. It was good guy and bad guy lock up. They wrestle around. Bad guy cheats.
Big guys.
Hurts.
Big guys.
Yeah.
The bad guy's always the smaller guy who cheats.
Yeah. The bad guy cheats. They go outside the ring. They fight outside the ring. They smash each other on the table. They tease that they're going to throw somebody through the table. They get back in the ring. Then either someone cheats and wins, or the good guy hits his finisher and they win. Or towards the mid 2000s, I don't know if they're still doing it, you would hit a finisher, they would kick out. Then you would hit your second finisher, then they would kick out. Then you'd have to make up a third finisher that you could tell the announcers about later. Then he would kick out. Then you'd go back to the original one, and then you would finally get the pinfall.
See, I still think that's a little bit too prevalent in wrestling. I think people kick out of finishers too much.
I think you're right. I think in AEW we are starting to see a little bit more than I'd like to, but at the early they were doing a really good job at making a finisher be the end. At the
same time, it's also like they were really bad there for a couple of weeks. They're starting to tone it back. I can already tell over the last 2 or 3 weeks that they're starting to tone it back.
Yeah, but they did. I mean,
Kenny Omega. I mean, and a lot of it has to do with Kenny Omega V trigger. Like people kick out of his V trigger left and right. And honestly, I think it's a horrible finishing move. He's still got that one-winged angel thing, which I think is pretty all right, but Kenny Omega is meh. To really see, yes. In AEW, I fully agree. He's been meh. To see really great Kenny Omega, you have to go back to New Japan.
He's a great performer in the ring. We're not saying that he's necessarily bad in the ring. It's just that we
haven't seen Kenny Omega perform well in the ring in AEW. To really see Kenny Omega perform well in the ring, you got to go on YouTube and watch some of his New Japan stuff. That's Kenny Omega.
Yeah.
That's the cleaner. That's the Terminator.
Well, I don't think
that's
we're going to see
the
that.
main match machine. I think we're going to see it soon.
Maybe with his heel turn?
With his heel turn, yeah. I think his heel turn is gonna bring the Kenny Omega of old back. I think we're gonna see a bad Kenny Omega. I think he's gonna be right up there in the main event, and I think we're gonna see a lot more out of Kenny Omega in the next 6 months.
Yeah.
If I had to put like a superstar to watch,
I might like him if he turns heel.
If I had to put a superstar to watch for the next 6 months, it would be Kenny Omega.
Yeah.
I really think he's going to make a heel turn, and that's going to make all the difference in his character over the next 6 months.
Yeah, I'm going to say watch Darby Allin.
Ooh, Darby's got a great... Nobody's denying. Darby's got him and Sammy Guevara. Sammy Guevara, the Spanish God, I think is probably one of the future...
Jericho is tutoring that boy. That boy is soaking up the knowledge, dude.
I mean, he even had a whole scandal that hit him off the ring and everything like that, and he was suspended for a couple of weeks. He's come back from that, still the golden child. Like, the fact that he was able to come back from that, still be the golden child, and still pick it up like nothing ever. Like, I think we're going to be watching Sammy Guevara for a lot of years.
Yep. He reminds me, he's a lot of like a Chris Jericho and an Eddie Guerrero.
That's what Jim Ross, the very first episode... Sammy Guevara was ever on Dynamite. The very first Dynamite, I think he was the mid-card match. Him and Cody, actually, I believe it was. And halfway through that match, good old JR, said he reminds me of a young Eddie Guerrero, and I don't think truer words have ever been spoken. Yeah. Sammy Guevara reminds me exactly of a young Eddie Guerrero.
His in-ring, that's what I mean. Yeah, his in-ring seems to be Eddie Guerrero. And
I mean, that 450 splash he pulls off is picture perfect.
And he's got so much Chris Jericho. He's learning from Chris Jericho on the mic skills. So
the mic skills and how to be an effective heel. Like, he's learning the business of being a heel from Chris Jericho.
Yep.
Which there's no better wrestler to learn it from right now.
No. He is as good at getting people to boo him as The Rock is to getting people to cheer him.
See, and I see the same thing for Sammy. I think Sammy could absolutely make a face turn. I think he'd have the crowd all over him. Oh, absolutely. Jericho turns on him or tries to kick him out of the inner circle. Okay. Absolutely. Absolutely. You do something like that, some sort of betrayal where the inner circle betrays Sammy Guevara and they jump him. Sammy would make a face turn quicker than Jericho does.
The Rock usually didn't get booed.
Except when he was going against Hogan.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, The Rock could still pull people out and boo you. Yeah, he could do that.
Oh, yeah. The few times The Rock went heel, the few times after his explosive popularity that The Rock went heel, he was very good at it.
Yeah.
Sitting in the middle of the ring with his guitar being like, it's all going to be a good time with The Rock tonight. Yeah, Seattle.
Yeah.
Like, The Rock is a great jackass when he needs to be.
He's great. He's got great charismatic skills, and he's great on the mic. I mean, and that's you don't get The Rock without giving him the mic and saying, "Go out there. You got 10 minutes. Go."
Exactly. That whole Rock and Sock Connection thing, that's all that was.
Yeah.
That was Vince trusting Mick Foley and The Rock to go out and make something happen for 10 minutes. He doesn't do that anymore.
Not with the new guys. Only the old guys get it.
And not even all of the old guys.
Well,
you don't see Brock Lesnar going out there doing his thing. It's Paul Heyman out there doing it for him.
Well, but Brock...
And I promise you, everything Heyman says is scripted.
Hold on. That's... No, it's not. Number one. No, it's not. Number one.
Number one.
Number two, the Brock Lesnar-Paul Heyman is that symbiote relationship. That is... In fact, I've heard Paul Heyman talk about how they should have never, at the times when they split up, that neither of their careers was going as good as when they worked together. That's how they work. Brock is a silent beast, and Paul Heyman is the mouthpiece. That's how they work.
He definitely is a fucking mouthpiece.
And he learned from Dusty Rhodes. Dusty Rhodes is one of the people how to taught him how to be so good on the mic. So, the American Dream.
American Dream. I'd raise it up when my glass is empty.
So, yeah. Where are we going with that?
I mean, it's just...
Vince McMahon has no more good ideas. He needs to pass the torch.
You get to a point where you have to trust your talent. And Vince, I believe, at least over the last decade, has lost trust in his talent.
Yeah, he stopped doing that.
Like, I think they've had some flops, too. It's not just all his fault. Like, how much time did they spend pushing Roman Reigns?
Oh.
How much time did they spend futilely pushing Roman Reigns on us?
Listen.
Nobody wanted to root for Roman Reigns. It was in front of them. It was a neon sign to me and you. You don't push Roman Reigns as a face. You have him be a heel.
Yeah, because
Roman Reigns is a beautiful heel. Exactly. They're booing him. The crowd hates Roman Reigns, and they spent months. They gave Taker's streak to not like Rock broke it first, but they gave a loss at WrestleMania to Roman Reigns, trying to get him over. And they couldn't get him over.
Nope.
Now what are they doing? Roman Reigns is back now. Like, I think he came back like 2 or 3 weeks ago as a Paul Heyman guy, as a heel.
Yeah.
And the crowd can't fucking stand it.
Yes.
And he's over. And he's over as hell.
Yeah, you should have done that years ago.
5 years ago.
If you have someone who has the athleticism to be on the main card, to be that one of those main event guys, and you're trying to push him as a face, and the people just aren't buying it, why would you try? Listen, if you got a guy out there and you want him to be cheered, and he's being booed when you want him to be cheered, you would have to do very little to get them to boo louder.
See, you don't even have to go back that far to a time when Vince understood that and realized that. All you got to do is go back to The Rock.
Yeah.
He came in as the blue chipper, Rocky Maivia, trying to push him. They spent weeks trying to push him as a good guy, and the crowd hated him.
Yep.
So what did they do? They said, you know what? You're going to join the Nation of Domination. You're going to be a bad guy.
Yep.
We're going to start running you as a bad guy.
Yep.
They gave him the IC title. He's standing up there next to Farouk, learning the title,
it wasn't even
learning the craft.
It wasn't even 6 weeks. I think it was, because I just watched through that recently. I think it was only like 3 or 4 weeks, and he was already challenging Farouk he was over as such a heel. He was challenging Farouk as the leader of the Nation of Domination.
Yes. Yeah. And Vince realized that. He made the decision. He made the adjustment, and they moved on better as a storyline. Better as a storyline, better as a company.
Yep.
Vince has lost that sight.
Yes.
Like, I don't know what it is. Maybe he's gotten so far up his own anus after so many years of not having WCW challenging him, bringing out the best in him.
I think some of it's that. But I also think that he let the wrestlers do more then. The new wrestlers don't get to do that. The Rock got told. The Rock got told for 20 minutes and said the popularity. Too many people bombing.
Yeah.
Val Venus.
Val Venus was hot for a while. He was hot. I mean, he was never above mid-card, but he was Intercontinental hot.
That was a gift. Let's see.
I think you got to go further along.
Ken Shamrock.
Ken Shamrock, absolutely. Steve Blackman.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you go down the line. I mean, if for every John Cena, you have 2 or 3 guys they tried to push that didn't take off.
And that's why he stopped. Because once The Rock started moving on, you go back into the timeline and look, Stone Cold gets old pretty quick, and it's not.
It's neck
It's
injuries,
not. He's already.
injuries.
Yeah. It's because he had already been wrestling for like 15, 20 years before he actually became Stone Cold. For some reason, if I ever get a chance to ask that man a question, Stone Cold Steve Austin, why did you not wear knee pads through the first 10 years of your career? I don't understand it.
Most don't. Most of them don't.
Go back
when they're young.
Go back and watch that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody wears knee pads now because they know.
Just go back and look. It's so noticeable because he doesn't. You're like, what? And his knees ended up going. But yes, and he put on some hard matches too. So I mean, but you had Stone Cold who was getting slower. You know, he was going to come out, especially.
There was always a timer.
Once both knee braces got put on, it was a ticking clock.
Yeah, there was always a ticking clock.
The Rock became a superstar.
It was. I mean, honestly, it was a miracle he came back from the neck fusion surgery.
Yes, when Owen Hart dropped him on his head. Yes, and then The Rock's becoming a superstar, so he's not going to keep risking injury, so he becomes a superstar. Triple H is a fantastic heel. He's a fine face, but he's a better heel. Who's fine, obviously they decided to put everything on the company. Yeah, they put everything on him on the company, really. But then who else? You lost Stone Cold and The Rock. Who took his... John Cena.
Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, Shawn Michaels, at least for many years, because he was back.
Few and far between when he
So what, you had John Cena, and John Cena, there was no guarantee John Cena. He had some injury problems when he first debuted in WWE, before he actually became popular. He was in once or twice, and then had an injury, and ended up getting shelved. So, and then John Cena just became popular out of nowhere. I don't know if that was his decision or freedom to let him develop a character.
The thing with John Cena was that he went away with an injury. That was them working the injury to their best, because Triple H went out with an injury, came back more popular than he ever was before. They did the same thing with John Cena. You got to remember, he had his whole thugonomics thing. He was the rapper. He was the down-low thug guy. And then he was injured, and he came back against Brock and had that big thing against Brock. That is what shot John Cena into that superstar level. Before then, he was just a dude. He was a U.S. title champ.
Yep.
But when he came back, John Cena, American flag. He came back as the dude. You can't see me.
Yep. Randy Orton, too. He wasn't exactly being the heel that they wanted, so he
Evolution really helped Randy Orton. Honestly, Evolution didn't really go for nearly as long or nearly as well as I was hoping they would, but Revolution, if they did one thing, it helped elevate Randy Orton
and Batista
to the levels that they got to.
Yes, but Randy Orton was when he first debuted, he had the longer hair. He was still doing some of the Cowboy Bob Orton stuff as many multi-generational people do. I mean, even The Rock was doing Rocky Maivia stuff.
Do you know what I think really was the key for Randy Orton to become a superstar, and something that it
was a heel turn.
I mean, it was a heel turn, yes, but it was, and I think you can honestly trace it right back to one man, and that one man is Ric fucking Flair. Again, Ric Flair took Randy Orton under his wing. Yeah. Ric Flair taught Randy Orton everything Randy Orton was willing to learn.
How to be a heel,
and Randy Orton absorbed everything Ric Flair was willing to teach.
Yeah, and I guarantee you, he told him to go back and watch. Like, he took him back and said, "Here, watch your dad, watch your grandfather."
If you watch the way Randy Orton is always a heel. A couple of times,
all the Ortons.
A couple of times he's a baby face. It's for very short periods. Randy Orton is a master heel. And if you look at the way that Randy Orton does things, he does things in a very Ric Flair way. Yeah. And he does it, but he took it to a next level. He adapted it. Yeah. That adaptability we were talking about, taking your character to the next level, moving on with the business as it evolves.
Evolution was a great stable, and yes, I think it helped. Randy Orton and Batista in the way that being a horseman helped your career in the 80s and early 90s.
Absolutely.
I mean, because both of them got put. I mean, Evolution didn't break up. Well, they kicked Randy Orton out when he got a shot at the title and wouldn't back down from Triple H.
What happened? What happened with the Four Horsemen?
And then Batista got a shot, and then that's when they kicked him out of Evolution. So
you can go back to the Horsemen and do the same thing.
Why did Sting? Sting's my favorite wrestler. Sting was a horseman for a while. He hung out with him for almost a year
against Ric Flair.
And
give it up, or we're gonna have a problem. It's the classic storyline. See, a lot of the times it is the repeated storylines, but it's not about repeating the storylines. It's about doing it in a new way or doing it well enough that we don't mind seeing the same storyline. And I think AEW is killing that right now over WWE.
Oh, yeah, they are.
They just can't hold up. They have talent, and I will give them that. They are trying to bring up new stars, see what works, see what's not. But right now, it's just such a clusterfuck over at the E that...
Over WWE, they are.
It's just you never know what you're gonna see from one week to the next.
Yeah, not with Vince McMahon just changing his mind week to week and abandoning storylines
and I will say there are two things that I think the WWE is doing at least somewhat well. I think NXT is obviously the better product. You took a Raw, SmackDown, or NXT. NXT is the one I'm watching. Secondly, I like a lot what they've been doing with the women's division. The women's division has really stepped up over the last... pretty much since Stephanie has taken over and cleared... Since they got rid of the Divas title and turned it back to women's wrestling. The women's wrestling...
Charlotte Flair, by the way.
Charlotte Flair. Big shout out to Charlotte Flair. Big shout out to Bayley and to Sasha. And the women in WWE, the women's wrestling is technically... and just entertainingly,
excessively
sound. Some of the best matches WWE puts on right now. The women are absolutely killing it in WWE.
Yeah.
Outside of the women's division, there's really not much going on there now.
Same old matches, just with different people.
Exactly. And most of the people you don't even care about.
Yep. Oh, he turned on you, or he stole your girlfriend. Oh, he switched to the dark side.
There was a time, and Chris Jericho speaks about this all the time. It was the time when he realized that he's pretty much done with WrestleMania, or that he was pretty much done with the WWE, at least for now. They had that time when it was him versus Kevin Owens. Him and Kevin Owens had a year-long feud going on after they had been friends for 6 months and then feuded for a year. Big thing to go up in WrestleMania. They were supposed to be the co-main event, like the match before the main event. 3 days before WrestleMania, he tells Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens, you're the second match on the card. You're not even opening this up. You're the second match on the card. The most disrespectful spot on the card. Something I didn't realize until Jericho had said it. According to the wrestlers, the second match on the card is the dump spot.
And the seventh. Or the second to the main event.
Yeah, when the second to the main event really a lot of times gets you led up to the main event.
No, I mean, if it's a co-main event.
Yeah.
But if it's not a co-main event, the seventh match, or what was supposed to be the seventh match, is often cut.
And a lot, I mean...
Or at least that's how it was back in the day. Maybe they've changed some of their format, in more modern days, but that's how it was back in the day.
I mean, you can listen to Stone Cold's podcast, Chris Jericho's. There's a million different wrestling avenues out there. And they all say the same thing, that there's usually a pay-per-view match on every pay-per-view that they're like, this is the match that's a dump match. This is the dump match.
Yes, there is a dump match, yes.
And Vince, after a year and a half of working that angle with Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens, considered that the dump match. How do you consider Chris Jericho a dump match?
Well, Kevin Owens. No, because Kevin Owens is really not that bad of a performer.
He's really not. You look at some of... I mean, again, I've got a sore spot for Kevin Owens, but you look at his performance in the ring.
Yeah, he's
a good wrestler.
Yeah.
And again, especially what he did with Jericho. Jericho, again, makes people look like $1 million. Yep. And Kevin Owens didn't really need to be made look like $1 million, but Jericho can make gold only shine even brighter.
Yeah.
That was a great match. You go back to that WrestleMania and watch that Chris Jericho, Kevin Owens match. It's one of the best matches on that card, if not the best single match on that card. I think the main event was like Brock versus somebody.
Yeah.
Brock versus Strowman or Bray Wyatt or something.
Even back when he started winning back against WCW, some of his ideas weren't the best. You could even tell after when the Attitude Era was in the middle and towards the end, after WCW had folded, or right at the end before they had folded, his ideas started getting a little bit more radical. I mean, the whole Mark Henry and Mae Young.
And a little bit of that, you got to wonder how much of that is Vince Russo piecing out. Like, Russo did come up with a lot of the really good ideas.
But Vince McMahon was always the
dude who put the brakes on Russo.
Yeah,
yes,
he was
but he didn't have Russo. After Russo left,
no, that was Russo. Some of those storylines were Russo that he that the filter didn't catch.
Yeah,
because Russo didn't leave the WWE and go to the WCW until 99 or 2000, I believe it was.
Really? When did WCW do the last Nitro?
The last Nitro was in 2002, middle or end of 2002.
That would make sense.
The Poke of Death was at the end in January of 2000 or 2001. In 2000 or 2001, in January, is when the Poke of Death was.
Yeah, and it was all just downhill from there. It was
I think it went 2 more years. So actually, I think it was 2000 was when the Poke of Death happened, and then 2002 was when they were closed. But it was like towards the end of 2002.
Yeah. September
or October. But, Vince Russo did go to WCW, and that's really when they spiraled, because then there was no filter.
Well, yeah, they gave him a lot of power that they
yeah, because they thought he was the guy, and they were like, no, dude, he comes to Vince with 50
great
ideas, and Vince
he definitely has good ideas, but you don't, for every, 3 that he has, there's maybe 1 speck of gold in there.
Yeah, and the other ones could be really bad.
So whether it's losing writers that they relied on a lot more than they expected, or whether it's Vince McMahon just losing the fucking plot, man. Like there's obviously real problems at WWE, and if they want to turn the ship around,
yeah, and they got a lot of problems.
But
too.
yeah, that's the
too
thing.
Many titles.
The title issue. Their superstars that
him being the be all end all, and as far as
not using their talent correctly,
yeah,
the writers' room being complete chaos.
Yeah,
And you got AEW over here on the other side of the coin doing everything correctly and doing everything right.
Yeah, saying, hey, we're going to give you character freedom and to explore your character.
But at the same time, there's going to be a break on that, too.
Well, I mean, you can't, not every idea gets approved, but that doesn't mean you can't. But at the same time, you're not going to get, completely shut down. They might say, hey, maybe, no, we don't think that's a good idea, but you're not going to be like, what are you doing coming up with your own ideas?
Yeah.
How dare you have an idea,
not only can you work for us on Dynamite, you can go to New Japan and do a run in Japan.
Yeah.
You can go down to Mexico. We got no problem with you doing all that, please. That way the guys, like your Sammy Guevara's, like your Penta and Rey Fenix, like the guys who are in their prime or who are still learning and perfecting their craft can get out there, get the reps
I think it's amazing that they're
make their
putting other titles.
Yeah, I love that. The fact that we had the one of the AAA championships, the Ultra Looper, I forget which one it was.
And then Taz's guy has that orange title.
Oh, don't get me started on the FTW title. That thing is...
The FTW title? Yeah, I mean, that thing is so...
It's so stupid. It's not even... It's useless. It is a useless piece of tin. It is a prop.
It's like a local...
It was a mistake.
It's like a local or regional... like very local or regional kind of championship.
It's ugly and it's useless and it's just a prop to try and do something with the machine, Brian Cage. Like they're still trying to figure out what they're trying to do.
WWE, Ted DiBiase and the $1 Million belts.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, again, that Ted DiBiase. You asked Ted DiBiase about that belt, and he says somebody asked him, it was, are you kind of bitter that you never got a WWF championship run? He's like, nah, I'm not. He's like, that $1 million belt they put on me made me more money than ever having that championship title will. He said, people to this day pay $20 to get a picture of me with that $1 million belt over my shoulder. He's like, to this day, I'm still selling people that picture.
Yeah.
He's like, I made more money off that $1 million belt than I'd ever make off a world title run.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And then, of course, the WCW had the WCW Hardcore title, which was a useless piece of tin.
I honestly... First I'm hearing of that title ever.
Oh, yeah. The WCW very briefly had a hardcore division.
I'm going to have to look that title up.
It was a little while after they got Raven.
You know what? For our next one, I'm going to look up the WCW title because I want to see what this thing looks like.
The WCW Hardcore title?
Yes, absolutely.
But the WCW also had the Juggalo Championship, which was crap.
No, don't even... No. We're not doing that tonight. No, absolutely not. We are not talking about ICP and WCW.
Yes.
We're going to have to save that for the next episode, my brother.
All right, well, I think we're going to be calling it there.
Yes, I do believe a hell of a conversation, sir.
Yep, we're going to have Kurtis on again for so many other shows. Definitely more wrestling talks. We're gonna have him on for Marvel. We're gonna have him on for some Marvel talks. We're gonna have him on for some Star Trek talks. We're gonna
pretty
have
much
him
anything nerdy.
We're gonna have him on for some Star Wars talks. He is our senior Marvel, Star Wars, Star Trek correspondent.
Absolutely, you forgot Firefly and Naruto as well, sir.
Yeah, Firefly's okay.
Yeah, anime was never your real big thing.
I'm not really an anime guy.
No, not so much.
So, but thanks for tuning in and watching. Hope you enjoyed it. And tune in next time. We'll be back in a few days to have another one.
Officially reached the boiling point.